Happy Friday, SMITE fans, and welcome into day number 2 of the SMITE World Championship group stages. Today, we've got some knockout matches for you. Of course, all year long, we've had Prime Gaming with us, and what a time to have Prime Gaming with yourself at home, because we've got some awesome team skins that you can get your hands on with Prime Gaming. All 8 SPL teams, they've got themselves a Prime Gaming skin. You can scan the QR code there in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen right now. Alternatively, you can head on over to gaming.amazon.com/smite and claim all 8 of our SPL team skins. It's a perfect time of year with the SMITE World Championship just around the corner. And so another awesome collaboration with our friends over at Prime Gaming and another great benefit for you and your Prime Gaming membership. And so we move our way into day number 2 of the SMITE World Championship group stage. And the heat gets dialed up a bit further here today. Again, yesterday we had 3 best-of-3s, none of them knockouts. But in these 2 double elimination groups, we will now be sending a couple teams home a bit later on today. And we're well underway in the road to Worlds now. We have or the bracket rather. We started off yesterday with the Tartarus Titans up against the Highland Ravens. That was a 2-0 win for the Titans, despite what was a very competitive second game. Eldritch Hounds, the big upset that was talked about all day yesterday, the SCC North American #1 seed, beats the Valhalla Valkyries. This is not a 3-game set. It's a 2-0 that probably should have gone 3, but the Hounds able to close it out. And so Titans versus Hounds, that'll happen tomorrow, and that is a SWC ticket match. The winner of that one goes on to the SMITE World Championship. But later today, the knockout match that all eyes need to be on, it's Ravens versus Valkyries over here in Group A. Now, Group B in a very similar spot, where tomorrow we'll be sending on one of our teams over to the SMITE World Championship, and one of the 2 teams will end up going home. And the matches in that group, very, very exciting here, Miff, where I think there's been a lot talked about in Group B, specifically with this first one, Solar Scarabs and Hex Mambo.
Yeah, this is an exciting match. I hesitate to call it a rematch. It's I suppose, a brand rematch.
Yeah, right.
Hex Mambo the same, actually slightly improved now that Trixtank's back on land for the first time with the rest of his team. But this is a completely different Solar Scarabs roster. Who's to say, right? Who's to say how it's going to look?
Right, well, look, this one not a knockout match again. The winner of this one will go on to face the Oni Warriors later on this weekend for a chance to go to the SMITE World Championship. And then the loser of this one moves on later to play the Chivalva Storm in what would be a knockout match. So we have now come a long way here, Miff, over the last day. What was crazy to me was just all 2-0s yesterday. Some expected results, I think. Although the 2 were closely matched, Hounds versus Valkyries, I'd still call that an upset with the Hounds beating the Valhalla Valkyries for the
100%.
For the first time in a calendar year, maybe even longer than that, that roster was able to beat them. And so then you end up moving on to talk about Scarabs versus Hex Mambo. And this is a matchup that garnered a lot of attention during SMITE Summer Masters, but again, to Miff's point, totally different Solar Scarabs team. But I think for Hex Mambo, that's been kind of brewing in the background, and for a lot of fans at home, the thought of another opportunity for Hex Mambo, can they be the team that beats an SPL squad? Can they go to Worlds? Miff, a lot of that now has to come to fruition here against the Scarabs team.
And I'm really excited for it. I mean, Hex Mambo has just been so absolutely dominant in their region. I think this is going to be one of our first times actually getting to see them get tested. If you speak to Hex Mambo, they're saying it's not a test at all. It's only confidence coming from their booth. But I'm really excited to see how they stack up against an SPL team. I would argue that this version of the Solar Scarabs that they're playing today is leaps and bounds better than the one that they beat previously. So I'm very excited for this set. But it feels like there still is a definitive favorite. I would likely give odds to the SPL squad, but Hex Mambo, they've got something to them. It makes me want to trust them.
Also, technically a different Hex Mambo squad from the last time that we saw them beat the Solar Scarabs member Trixtank. Not at SMITE Summer Masters. It was Rotwin playing in that event. But Trixtank is here. It's the full Hex Mambo squad. Not only is Trixtank here, standing by with JMac for the pregame interview.
Yeah, that's right. I've got the actual support for Hex Mambo with us this time around on land. Trixtank standing by with me. And Trix, I'll just open up with this. I mean, how does it feel finally being back on land, but not just being on land with your team competing for the SMITE World Championships?
I mean, it's a completely different environment this time, you know. Like I've been out of the SMITE scene in a sense, right, for the last 3 years. So it feels really weird being back, but I'm just excited to play again. And it's been an absolute blessing to be back and meet all the other boys. So I'm just enjoying my time here, and hopefully we'll win.
Yeah, hopefully so. Now, as mentioned, this is kind of a new Solar Scarabs team. You know, the last time that you guys faced off against them, it was 4 different players. The only one who's still consistent here is Scary D. Do you think that this is maybe a better Solar Scarabs team to face off, or do you think that this one might be a worse one comparatively?
I mean, it's so hard to tell because they haven't played any games and we have no idea what their scrims is like. So we're going in totally blind. That's why we're just doing what we do and try to go for some picks that we like because we have no idea what they play. We have no idea how good they are. So first game is going to be a tester, and then we'll see what happens after that. But yeah, the first game is going to be a 50-50, but I think we're going to take the set.
Yeah, so how does that kind of change up, you know, the dynamics of picks and bans? You know, they pretty much know everything that you guys have been doing by watching SEC throughout the year, whereas you don't know too much about them. How much does that kind of change up your dynamic in picks and bans and whatnot?
I mean, it changes everything. Usually, you know, you go into any team, you have different pick and bans, but this time we just focus on ourselves because we can't predict anything. So it's the Wild West out there, but I hope it's going to be all right.
Yeah, I mean, you guys have been looking so good so far at this phase ever since y'all have had, you know, a little bit of time with each other from phase 2 into phase 3, coming in as the #1 seed out there. Now, one thing that I noticed, and maybe you can help elaborate on this, is we saw Deathwalker dressed up in, what was it, full suit and tie? What's going on with that one?
I think he tries to showcase confident, and then it's going to show in the game. That's the mentality that I think he has. But you know, I'm loving it. It's just good vibes, you know, and bringing the mood up. So yeah, just loving it.
So one final question for you, Trix. What's confidence in your team here to try and find the win up against Solar Scarabs? Think this is going to be 2-0, 2-1? Think he's going your way?
I mean, I think you heard we already have good confidence, but I mean, of course, it is an SPL team, so 2-1 for us.
2-1 for Hex Mambo. We'll see if they can find another upset against the Solar Scarabs. Trix, thanks for coming by for the pregame interview. I'll let you get back with the team. We'll be back to Des to bury you down.
You can tell the vibes with this Hex Mambo team, at least for Trixtank, are in a really good spot. Do you want to repeat what you said to me earlier about Deathwalker's suit? I thought it was a really funny comment, but I'll leave it up to you.
Look, Deathwalker, I'm sure, will tell us himself. I don't want to take the steam away from him. If they win, it's almost certainly going to be him for the interview, and
All right.
he has always had words for the desk.
This is good. We're sprinkling some intrigue.
That's right.
So if Hex Mambo win, we'll get to hear what maybe
Chat's preying on the downfall of the Scarabs now.
the Solar Scarabs. Well, look, Deathwalker looks clean. Hex Mambo are going to have to play clean because the Solar Scarabs, Myth, this is a team. We've talked a lot about this. Rumblings we've heard about this Scarab squad. And you know, maybe undeniable that, you know, sort of orientation of this team, they look very strong. But some of what we've heard are just, is how good the Solar Scarabs have been in scrims. Now, I mean, it's an age-old tale. We're in, season 9 of the SPL. How many times we've been told the team's been crushing it in scrims and then steps up to land and falls a bit short. You can't take everything away from that. But if some of what has been said is believed to be true, maybe the Solar Scarabs team shouldn't be worried about Hex Mambo if they're truly playing as well as what we're hearing.
Look, the hype around the Solar Scarabs from the rest of the pros in the league when I've been given the opportunity to hear their thoughts on this team has been so astronomically high that I feel like I'm on punked. Like, it is ridiculous how much praise this team has received from the rest of their contemporaries, from the rest of the players in the league. I have to see it. I think Trixtank frames it very, very well. We don't know. As casters, as fans at home, the only people that know how good the Solar Scarabs are themselves and the teams that they've played against in their practice matches. So it is a completely different look. The only things that I could share are Barracuda has explicitly told me that their play style is a complete shift up to what we had seen previously. And that helps me none on this desk. I mean, how am I supposed to analyze something that we've literally have zero data on? We could talk about individual players and their performances. Netrioid, for a period, was one of the soloingest ADCs in the league, found so many 1v1s. Hurriwind has really facilitated his squads in the SEC and now in the SPL as well, adjusting to this new role in the support. Snoopy, now in mid as well, has been having a bit of a decent performance, but as far as team-wide synergy or strategy or pick ban strategy,
Yeah, who knows?
I don't know.
But, meta hasn't fallen too far from where it was during Phase 3 playoffs, and then the SEC teams bringing in a very similar meta to where they were during the SEC Road to Worlds earlier on in December. And so nothing's been all that surprising. So I wouldn't be surprised if the Scarabs end up sticking a bit with what has been the meta so far here this weekend. I think worth looking back at how Hex Mambo beat, granted it was a previous iteration, a completely different Solar Scarabs team. A lot of it had to do with Deathwalker out of the solo lane and his picks and his priorities there, and we'll see what he's able to grab here. For game number 1, as we jump into picks and bans, a lot of individual plays that made a big difference there, Myth, but also Hex Mambo looked like the cleaner team in that set against the Solar Scarab. Remember this yes, you're telling me they looked like a worse team. You guys can't see Myth.
Not worse. I wouldn't say it was clean. Look, my stance
I never said it was clean.
You said cleaner.
Correct.
I'm not so certain.
One team could be rolling in the mud, and the other team has one clean arm, and they're more clean. Am I wrong?
I mean, yeah. I would just say that any team that is requiring the level of heroics that we had seen from Hex Mambo in that previous set it is so difficult to put the clean moniker within the same room as them.
But again, cleaner. And
they did win, so I must be cleaner. Must be cleaner.
Correct. So what you would have preferred is I said they were the less dirty team.
I would have just said the better team.
Right, the better team. But, that Solar Scarabs roster at the time made plenty of mistakes in that set against Hex Mambo. And yes, the big 4-man Deathwalker Fearless is what ends up getting talked about. But happened again later in that set. Deathwalker got that pick again and made it look really good, even without the 4-man Fearless. So what we're hoping for Hex Mambo is that it doesn't require that type of heroics. You get a good clean, we'll use the word clean here, where you're hoping for a clean game of Smite. But also you're maybe hoping and expecting the same for the Solar Scarabs team. Lots of talent on that roster. Trixtank didn't reveal too much. He said it's the Wild West out there as far as picks and bans. The bans, you're taking away tier from Deathwalker and the Amaterasu. That's a good start. But Heimdall plus Chronos, a 1-2 punch, both the carries already taken care of for Hex Mambo.
We knew Hex Mambo was going to be playing a different style than what we'd seen the rest of this weekend. They have got a very eclectic god pool between each one of their individual members. But when I think of Hex Mambo, I think bar none, Chronos Zero is his best god. Easily. The performances that he's had in the EU SCC on this pick have just been phenomenal. All traditional Smite knowledge goes out the window because he plays this as an early pick and he scales just as well as any other Chronos into the late game. Echrome has shown time and time again that Heimdall is just his favorite and one that he is very capable of either getting aggressive or playing frustratingly safe on up against his opponents. But the concern I have for this style of composition for Hex Mambo is that in the past, they all in on the late game draft. It's a standard hunter, a Chronos, a Mercury out of the jungle, a late game scaling soul laner as well. And the concern is up against the SPL or even up against some of their North American contemporaries, can they really get to that late game with such a late game slanted draft? They don't generally draft bridge picks. It's not often we see Johnny lock in just some early game Osiris mannequins to facilitate some of these scalers. It is, hey, we're all really good, and generally we just beat our opponents so easily that it doesn't necessarily matter what portion of the game we're strongest at. I like this, though. The Chulainn, one that you can really rely on to hold his own in lane.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's hard to read Hex Mambo, because part of me feels like when you compare them to the other EU SEC teams,
they're just better.
They play a much faster pace is the initial thought. But maybe to your point, they're just better at the game, and so they end up winning faster, and it doesn't have much to do with the pacing of their games. Chulainn should be a fun one here for Deathwalker up against Scary D, the last remnant of the Solar Scarabs team that lost to Hex Mambo during Smite Summer Masters. Worth mentioning, we talked so much about Hex Mambo, and this is definitely a consolation prize. I'm going to get ahead of this. The Scarabs mopped the floor with Hex Mambo earlier on in Smite Summer Masters, and then the rematch went to Hex Mambo. Of course, the rematch being the more important of the two games, which is why we talk about it. But Hex Mambo, definitely a massive upset when they beat the Solar Scarabs about halfway through this year. Second wave of bans starting to roll through, though. As the Wheelix and the Ymir off the table, thanks to the Solar Scarabs. Set plus Thor. So Sanford Soccer eating a couple of bans there. Solar Scarabs still needing an impactful jungler here. And Terramif has started to rise and play a little bit here. A couple games, and we had 6 games played yesterday. About a third of them have featured Terra.
Yeah, I like some of the synergies already stacked up by Mambo. Heimdall and Terra in particular work very well together. The Gallarhorn from Heimdall just procs Earthen Fury extremely quickly and with extreme ease as well. Just massive tick damage anywhere in the massive cone around him. So that's very strong. You've got a very safe lane that is essentially both Heimdall and Terra immune to knockups, which would make it a little bit more difficult for Maui to find value from the landfall. But as far as team fights are concerned, as of now, we haven't seen the major pieces from the Solar Scarabs. Jungle and mid gonna really round out their draft, I think. But on Hex Mambo, if your standard initiation is either Terra or Chulainn, it is gonna be very difficult for either a Heimdall or Chronos to have meaningful follow-up. Yep. It's Heimdall with his generally slower attack speed when compared to other hunters. Will, I suppose, be able to get maybe 1 or 2 auto attacks off of a Terra root or a Chulainn knockup in the late game. Chronos, in the latest portion, I mean, just an auto attack is enough, but still is very execution dependent on landing some of those abilities. Very small abilities as follow-up as opposed to standard AoE like something a Discordia could bring. It's a draft from Hex Mambo that, with a lead, could absolutely run away with the game. They have got phenomenal objective burn potential, but it is really a draft that could fall behind as well. There are some weaknesses in the early game that the Solar Scarabs could look to exploit.
Yeah, look, the Solar Scarabs, a lot of that early game will funnel through Sam for Soccer. He's a dynamic jungler. He's been the best in the world at times, and now he's got a pick that has worked out for him so often in the past. And I think worth mentioning for Sam, throughout the remainder of this weekend, he's going to be a very hard jungler to prioritize picks and bans around. He plays just about everything. Has played 6 different picks in his last 6 games. Hebo, Gilgamesh, Thor, Pele, Hunbats, and Mercury. It's worth throwing a ban or 2 towards Sam if there's something that really works against your draft, but who knows what he's going to play. In Myth, now it is the Hunbats, and it's a pick that provides some really good setup, potential aggression, but one of Sam's priority picks is actually locked in now by Dzoni, and maybe doing Dzoni a disservice by only talking about Sam on the Mercury, because Dzoni on Mercury went 11-1-5 at the end of the EU Road to Worlds, EU SEC Road to Worlds, about a month ago. So Dzoni has carry potential just the same as Sam does.
But this is exactly what I was talking about with this unique draft strategy from Hex Mambo. It's another late game pick. Doesn't necessarily have the weakest early. Mercury has the potential to get involved around level 5. Sonic Boom, of course, a phenomenal gank tool, but another late game scaler on a draft that has already got 2 others around it could make that early game very weak for Hex Mambo. Whereas previously, the Solar Scarabs could say, hey, let's just dedicate all of our time to focusing this Chronos in mid, run them down, force the beads, take the rewind, and continually invade that red buff.
Yeah.
Now they have 2 avenues to exploit in the early. Run at this Mercury at level 3 at his back camps. Good luck fighting back. Fortunately for Dzoni, it's not as if Hunbots is that standard bully. It's not a Mannequin's jungler. It's not a Thor or something along those lines. So maybe not as easy for the direct 1v1 between junglers this time around. But it is still another very high execution draft from Mambo against one of the strongest teams that they've had the opportunity to play all year.
I'm really excited for a lot of the individual matchups here in this one. We haven't talked much about the ADCs just yet. Echrome has been so important for this Hex Mambo team. Stepped up big time during the EU SEC Road to Worlds a month or so ago. Looked really good on Ishtar and Heimdall both, and gets one of those priority picks right now with Heimdall for Echrome. And then Netrioid, Myth. Netrioid has been rock solid for the teams that he's played on, right? Doesn't feel like the type of player who's gonna, blow out the opposing team, but it's very hard to sort of frazzle Netrioid at times. And I do think the Echrome Netrioid 1v1, albeit in lane, might not have that many fireworks, but positioning and hitting your shots and all that will be a fun dynamic this set.
And although Heimdall is the safest hunter in the game, Rom might be the only one that has got legitimate kill potential against him. You could ride the Bifrost as far as you want. For the most part, that global presence or semi-global presence from Rom should be able to chase out some of those kills if Echrome falls low. It's a matchup that he hasn't had too many opportunities to play either. We've seen Heimdall and Rom together in the SPL here or there, but for the most part, the EU SEC hasn't really prioritized the Rom pick, whereas Heimdall has been very popular, so there might be a bit of a experience gap between these two. Netrioid has had a few opportunities to play this direct matchup. Otherwise, I do still trust Echrome to play that Heimdall very well. I don't expect any solo kills to happen. I would imagine that's a bit of a slow lane.
Well, Myth, Hex Mambo versus Solar Scarabs. There's plenty of history between these two teams. Let's delay no further. Game 1 kicking off.
Let's see who's going to come out on top in game number 1. Will it be the EUSCC of Hex Mambo, or are the SPL going to be able to take this one back with the Solar Scarabs? It's J-Mac, Trelly, and Doug to bring the action for game number 1 of this set. Not an elimination set just yet for these two squads. It's their first ones of the event through. And Charlie, this is a essentially brand new Solar Scarabs team from the last time that we got to see these two face off. Hex Mambo now have their proper support back in lane with them. Should be a very fun matchup to watch with them, but a very late game one, as the desk alludes to, at least for Hex Mambo's sake.
Yeah, I definitely see that, but I'm not seeing the early pressure from the Solar Scarabs either. I mean, Maui definitely will be able to bring some extra lane dominance. There's no reason for Hurriwind to be scared early on. But, you know, as Myth touched on, same for soccer. Hunrats doesn't love getting active in the early either. You're level 5, sure, you have that opportunity, but I think Mercury has that same opportunity. It's really just, can you get CDR online and then start using Fear No Evil off cooldown? Once you can do that, then of course, you're going to be essentially blinking in any opportunity you can, trying to pull Beach, trying to force the issue, and sort of set up for your team. But it doesn't look like the Solar Scarabs have that immediate, we're going to run it down early comp, and you're not going to get online. It does seem like they're also trading blows, saying we can get late game, we have no problem, we've got the Discordia passive, and we have Netrioid on Rama, one of the hardest late game hunter carries you can get. So I don't think they're too pressed about fighting pre-level 5 or pre-level 10 at this point either.
We've been seeing a lot of action in the dual lane. Hurriwind, and jumping in aggressively, but a dash by Dzoni. We'll toss Sam for soccer away, because Zyrhoes has been eating a lot of poke from Snoopy and the minions inside this lane. The mid 2v2 has been going in favor of the Solar Scarab. You see that put on display again. Trixtank close, but not going to get pulled back by Hurriwind this time around. He'll be safe, and using up a lot of those potions to try and stay in lane. Even the meditation expended during the last little scuffle. Sam for soccer jumps over the wall. Dzoni will once again dash to throw him, but Snoopy a little too far to try and punish this one.
Yeah, and I think the Solar Scarabs definitely did their homework for how Hex Mambo likes to play. Banning out the tier and the Ama really does hinder what Deathwalker can do in the early. The way they usually play solo lane is Deathwalker just split pushes. He goes and gets as much farm as possible, out farms whoever he's up against, and then rotates in level 20. That is not something that Chulainn can do as easy. Much easier to find a gank onto that character as well. It's not going to be just, hey, I'm proxying between your waves and you have to ignore me. Still, you can definitely box up against Scary D and look to brawl, but not going to find any sort of easy farm on that right side of the map. Blue buff invades could be coming through here, but it looks like Sam for soccer wasn't feeling too confident in going for that. Just going to grab the totem respawn and go for Scary D's own blue buff. This is what I was talking about. Hurriwind is able to get active, has the Indra Scepter, has plenty of regen with that meditation, and is able to go for these invades. Won't work out, the hog is there, but can still do a ton of damage to Echrome.
Yeah, we'll pull Echrome in, and with that Scepter plus the auto attacks, a lot of damage thrown into the Hunter of Hex Mambo. Solar Scarabs making sure to keep up pressure in multiple lanes, not just the dual lane where they've been getting the better end. Up until Deathwalker teleported back in, he's been sitting under tier 1 tower the entire time up against Scary D. Needed the help from Dzoni to rotate over to get some assists there, and that's where we're starting to see some of the gold disparity come through. About 500-600 gold already up for the Solar Scarabs, and we haven't really seen much action across the map. A couple of totems have gone the way of the Scarabs. That's where some gold goes through, but pressure in the dual lane continues. Good Bifrost from Echrome will get him away from the danger of Netrioid.
Yeah, doesn't want to fight just yet, especially now without level 5, and I think the desk handled it pretty well. I don't think Hex Mambo wants to fight in duo lane much at all unless Johnny's able to come over with a Sonic Boom, whereas the Scarabs, Netrioid's been dashing in consistently in this waves, and Echrome's actually dashing in here.
Echrome pops the beads. It's a boxing match between the Hunters, but only one goes through everybody, and that's Ram with Netrioid. First blood up to the Solar Scarab. Snipes needs all 3 plus extra, but not enough just yet. Hurriwind will dive in, gets the pull, gets the kill. It's 2 up for the Solar Scarabs.
Wow, and Hurry going for some laps. Here comes Johnny, though. Will he be able to find something? I'm pretty sure the leap is available. He's going to stall out for his team. I don't think Dzoni has enough damage to finish this one, but Soccer finds the kill on the Zyrhoes through beads.
3 up now for the Solar Scarabs. Hex Mambo, Echrome returns, finds the dash from Dzoni onto Hurriwind, low in mana, but not a lot of damage to follow up, and maybe Dzoni is lucky that there's no snipes available from Netrioid, because he could have been the next one on the docket.
Yeah, those snipes were on point, though, to confirm that kill on a Trix. You could tell wanted to dash through the walls, but just did not have it back up, did not have any sort of way to escape. 3-0 start for the Solar Scarabs. That's 2K gold in their favor before 5 minutes. This is the kind of aggression that we expected, but also didn't think would come. I just think the Hex Mambo either A, got a little bit overextended. They tried to dash in. I'm still perplexed that Echrome actually took that Bifrost in to fight. I guess thought more damage was coming through and maybe got a little bit baited by the meditation there from Hurriwind. Either way, good play, and starting off with a kill on your ADC, definitely not going to be anything bad. And Soccer getting the kill on the Zyrhoes as well through beads. That's going to be a great start here for the Scarabs.
Scarabs up now, 3-0 against Hex Mambo. As mentioned, a 2,000 gold lead in favor of the SPL team, and let's see where they run with that 2K lead. Sending 4 to rotate over for the Scorpion, just to confirm that one. Zyrhoes down a level. Even Dzoni. Well, no, Johnny's actually maintaining even pace with Sam, despite the kill. Going over to the jungler of the Solar Scarabs earlier on. So how Hex Mambo fight back through? We know that this is a team that is capable of dragging a game down to 40, 45 minutes before they really get their actual fighting going. But the pacing that the Solar Scarabs have now set for themselves may not be reaching that 40 minutes so easily.
Yeah, I think that Zyrhoes usually just AFK farms, doesn't like fighting, and already Soccer has exploited that, going for the blink ult on him, getting his beads down, still down for 50 seconds. So if the reaction rewind is not there, could be some trouble. Beautiful Sonic Boom, that's definitely gonna net a kill onto Scary D, and Deathwalker getting credit for that one, forcing out that Eagles rally. And getting Deathwalker off to a good start is exactly what Mambo needs to try and thwart this lead that the Scarabs have for themselves.
And Eagles rally a bit early there from Scary D, just trying to get away from Deathwalker, but forgot that there's a semi-global Mercury that can be right in the middle of your lane at any given moment. So Hex Mambo finally get their first kill on the board. That doesn't close up the gold too much. Scary D didn't really have all that much of a lead himself. XP climbs down to only about a 1,000 up for the Solar Scares, but Hex Mambo at least getting a lead somewhere on the map, and they needed it somewhere because everywhere else has been struggling with the kills going in their respective zones. So Deathwalker will now have the first lead for his team. Pressure still on Echrome. The hook connects. Echrome holding on to beads, but losing out on so much HP. Snipes gonna need all 3, but the third one just off the mark for Netrioid. Landfall will not connect either, and it gets the beads off the Hunter this time around. Echrome lives, but it costs them quite a bit.
Soccer does have the blink, though, if Echrome sticks around, and will not. Gonna go back to base, but the purple buff invade is what the Scarabs were after. Hurriwind's gonna pick that one up, as Dzoni is trying to steal away some farm in the process. I was gonna say, getting the beads down and the ult could open up some avenues for Soccer look to get aggressive, but actually, it looks like a possible pull to the Gold Fury, and they're gonna start this up. It's on a ward. Here comes the rest of the Mambo, and that is going to have to be reset. A good call, just making sure they had vision. And Snoopy is not going to let this speed buff go for free.
No, but Snoopy is losing out on a little bit of farm in lane because of it. Throws out the damage of that Unruly Magic already. Does confirm the speed for his jungler. Maxi will pick up the speed for himself and give red over to Sam this time around. That means that at least now Snoopy can go back to farming. Scary D going for a back harpy invade. Dzoni will dash in. He'll be able to cure at least the smalls for himself, and then take the smalls of the other back camp as well. Dzoni going to be able to go back to base, but lose out on a little bit of time sticking around the opposite side of the map.
I'm curious where Deathwalker decides to go with the build. I mean, started off with the Soul Eater. That is going to help him trade pretty well with Scary D, but how much damage is he willing to build on this Kakul? And you run the risk of not being tanky if you build too much, but Soccer realizes Deathwalker just jumped in.
Perfect start to the fight with an ultimate, a double root, a double push, and the war cry after, but Deathwalker has stepped too far forward. Sonic Boom deters Scary D from going any further forward, and Deathwalker will be out. Has his teleport up in just a few seconds if the fight continues to break out, but Deathwalker will stick around to make sure he gets his blue buff and will live, if only barely.
Yeah, unfortunately for Deathwalker, I mean, doesn't have the Soul Eater stacked up yet, but SMITE started the Brawlers, not even because of that itemization, because you're up against a Terra. You just want that anti-heal as is, but you're going to get extra value. Deathwalker thought, hey, I'm spamming 4 different abilities on 2 targets. And oh my goodness, Echrome once again in some trouble here with the snipes.
Needs all 3 again. Netrioid on point this time. Will take down the Hunter. What is Echrome doing? Just standing in front of the tower, taking up, I think, 5 or 6 auto attacks before he finally walks out of range from Netrioid. Some questionable plays from the Hunter of Hex Mambo now cost him his 2nd life. Scary D avoids the root. Warcry will be jumped away by the Eagles rally, but questionable decision making by Echrome on this left side.
Yeah, unfortunately, Netroid's just so far ahead, right? Full Executioner to Balance Blade, there is no boxing potential. There's no way Echrome can actually fight into that. He's trying to just tank up as much as he can while also getting farm and then backing up, but Netroid has proven today he doesn't miss, right? These snipes are hitting, these auto attacks are hitting. You can't trust the sidestep for that last snipe in this case. So Echrome's gonna have to watch his health bar a little bit more. You cannot let yourself get into that 30% health hold, because it's essentially an execute, because Netroid, like I said, he's not missing.
Now, on point so far for Netroid, a nice little solo kill to his name. Back harpy invade by Scary D is successful, and because of these kills and because of this pressure in the dual lane, this is net the Solar Scarabs about a 2,500 gold lead now, so it's gone up just a little bit. Scary D walking up to Deathwalker, Zyrhoes and Dzoni on the way, even Trixtank to try and cut off the path on the lower side. Transformation out Deathwalker gets through from Scary D, but Fear No Evil will push one under. Sonic Boom to the backline by Dzoni, but he misses the major look on a Scary D. And because of that, the solo laner for the Solar Scarabs will be able to walk himself back on into the lane after that engagement. And Hex Mambo come up empty-handed.
Yeah, that could have been massive if that Sonic Boom into the major look actually connected, but Scary D gets out for free in this case. And one more level the beads will be able to purchase as well if that's something Scary D wants, which is just another level of extra safety that would really help out with all these ganks. Pyromancer started up, and here comes Trith and Deathwalker. They don't want this to go down.
Now Deathwalker will pull 2 of them off. The Golden Apple does hit 1. Deathwalker will trade it over, but it's a kill. Now for Deathwalker, but he gets yanked back in. Off the hook from Hurriwind, dash in by Scary D, bludgeon slam down. Netrioid has picked up a double kill, snipes. The landfall will drop Zyrhoes, but he'll be able to get the rewind off, repositions, but he's behind all 4. Beads also expended by the mid laner, but that is a 2-for-1 trade for the Scarabs and a Pyromancer to go back to.
Yeah, Pyromancer is going to be completed. That's a massive rotation from Netrioid. I think just the pick that Deathwalker was able to grab would have been it if this Rama's not here. No one expected how much was going to come through from this Rama, though. Everyone's like, oh, he's 2-0, that'll be fine. He's got Executioner. Oh, he's got full Odysseus bow now. Now he's 4-0, level 13. Higher than anyone on the map currently. I mean, Netrioid essentially can do no wrong. I'm looking towards Gold Fury if I'm the Solar Scarabs, and I definitely think that's where they're headed next. Wait for some ultimates, wait for those relics to come back up, and then start your pull with Snoopy's burst as well. As long as you've got eyes on Dzoni, it should be relatively free.
Trixtank pulled once more, but I mean, talking about the disparity of the Hunters, I mean, you talk about how earlier it was Executioner versus a Balance Blade. Now we're talking a full Odysseus bow up for Netrioid. Not much that the Hex Mambo Hunter can do for now, and not much the Hex Mambo will do to respond to the Gold Fury. That one goes cleanly to the Solar Scares with absolutely 0 contest from Hex Mambo. And we're starting to see this gold lead now peter a little bit further in favor of the Solar Scarabs. 3,500 and 2.5k XP, though it seems that a majority of that is coming from these Hunters. 3 levels up for Netrioid at a tier 1 tower to boot. This is hard and a tough position for Echrome to be in right now.
Yeah, and I love the way SMITE is playing it, because usually you would say, hey, there's a 4-0 Rama. Dzoni, head over here and help me out. Snoopy is going to lose his beads in the process, barring some big damage. May be able to make it out, but no, Dzoni pre-beads, and Scary D's a little bit too little too late. Snoopy's going to get soloed by Dzoni.
Dzoni will be able to get out. Has to use the Sonic Boom, though. Probably not the most ideal position for the Mercury. Even had to use the beads to go through that strife to guarantee that last hit onto Snoopy. But every little bit counts for Hex Mambo. Sure, it's no shutdown bounty, but being able to find a pick on the mid laner opens up the door for Zyrhoes a little bit more. The dual lane, I mean, we're looking at 3 levels total between the dual lane 1 for the supports, 2 for the hunters. Hurriwind and Netrioid able to steal away the purple once more and deny farm yet again to this duo lane.
Yeah, I'm just looking to see who's going to be able to shut down Netrioid. I think Deathwalker's going to have to prioritize some more physical defense. That Glad Shield is not going to cut it. However, if you're just ignoring Netrioid until late game, you've got some answers. Johnny's getting some crit online, finally stacking up that rage. Has 1 stack currently thanks to that kill onto Snoopy. As well as Zyrhoes is going for double stacking Chronos. That tells me that Mambo are hoping and trying to play for late game as is, but they're confident. There's no way you're building Warlocks there if you think this game is ending in the next 10, 15 minutes. You're saying this is going 30 plus, and Zyrhoes is going to be able to get this item fully stacked as well as get his Soul Reaver, his Pen, his Poly, whatever it is he wants, and do enough damage to actually kill some of these carries. So stall game is the play, and it looks like Deathwalker and Dzoni are focused more so on the right side of the map. Trying to fight away from Netrioid is the call.
Hurriwind will jump over the stun from Zyrhoes, but not from at least from Trixtank there, able to find the wall. But this level disparity into the dual lane, it's unlikely that we'll see Echrome try and go for any boxing anytime soon. So then, where does Dzoni maybe put his pressure? Does he try and keep Scary D a little bit further behind? Does he continue the pressure up against Snoopy and buy a little bit of extra space for Zyrhoes, who is working towards what I imagine might be that Poly? Scary D ults on top of Dzoni. Spinning the Eagles rally to secure the blue buff, but Dzoni now level 16. He's actually got a considerable lead over Sam for Soccer with only a single kill to his name so far. Dzoni been able to keep up and keep ahead.
I mean, that's the benefit of the Mambo playstyle, is Dzoni realizes, hey, Echrome's done. I'm not going to go over there. I'm going to steal all the farm on the right side of the map. Sam for Soccer has been consistently babysitting this Rama, saying, hey, I'm going to make sure your purple buff always goes down. I'm going to invade their purple buff. I'm going to stay on the left side of the map. Every time that happens, Dzoni's stealing back camps. Dzoni's going for blue buffs. Dzoni's doing everything he can. Snoopy went for the help last time and tried to save the back camps for his team, and he ended up getting soloed by Dzoni. That's the reason that Dzoni's so far ahead, and Scary D, he's going to be in even more trouble.
Fortunately, used the beads a little bit early and didn't have the Eagles rally from when he secured it. The blue buff with it, I should say. And that's a second death onto the solo laner of the Solar Scarabs, and it seems that that's where Hex Mambo are going to play with their lead, with that level and a half up for Dzoni and now level up for Deathwalker. Try and keep up the pressure on Scary D. Heartward in third slot for Deathwalker. A little bit of magic defense. May spell some early rotations over towards Snoopy now, once we see Deathwalker finally leave this lane. But Dzoni now with the serrated edge online as well, so a little bit of lifesteal, a little bit of pen to his name.
They're starting fire.
And starting up Fire Giant for the Solar Scarabs. No one from Hex Mambo is around. Dzoni will walk through. He's got to go past Snoopy. Will find the dash. Sees the Ring of Fire. This one is through. Dzoni blinks past. Going to try for the Major Look over the wall, but too little, too late. The Solar Scarabs get the fire for free.
I mean, that's a great call. They recognized they had the vision. It looked like they were grouping up for Pyromancer, so Hex Mambo didn't even look over. Dzoni started to realize something was fishy. Did not have the vision to try and go for the Major Look. Was just trying to guess at how much he could steal there. A little bit earlier would have had a shot, but now the Solar Scarabs, with their gold lead, have that Fire Giant. And Netrioid is dacking in once again.
Zyrhoes cannot get into the rewind in time. Netrioid puts him down, and it's a rampage. 5 in a row for the Hunter of the Solar Scarabs, level 17 on this ROM. Dzoni gonna do a little bit of proxy farming in mid, but there's a Primal Fury up for only another second before that one goes down as well to the Solar Scarabs, who have now amassed a 5,000 gold lead up against the EUSCC.
Yeah, I'm thinking Hex Mambo needs a massive stop underneath Phoenix, and they gotta let Echrome get some of those last hits. That's their way back into this game, because at the moment, Netrioid can do no wrong. I know I said that 10 minutes ago, but he's still dashing in against 2, and there is no one to stop him. I'm surprised Dzoni at this point hasn't tried to put some pressure over towards this Rama. With the amount of crit he has, there's a chance he'd be able to find a kill, but I guess a kill onto Dzoni may just be GG. Stopping his farm train may just be the end of game number 1 here, so probably smart to fast track to level 20 before you look over towards that Rama, because at the moment, Dzoni actually has a lead on Netrioid. He's just been ignoring fighting. But tier 2 over on left will be looked at. Looks like Mambo are just going to be defending Phoenixes because they can't step up that far.
Tier 2 tower gone. Poured in by Snoopy with Hurriwind, but not going to push into the Phoenix this time. on a Solar Scarabs. His first Fire Giant, likely just a tower clear for a couple of lanes. Scaredy has given up on his soul lane, has rotated over mid to help with the rest of the squad. Tier 1 tower goes down, Tier 2 short to follow as there's no answer back for the Solar Scarabs. And while we might not see a Phoenix defense this time around, we might not actually even get an opportunity to see a real fight. Dzoni has to go back to base as we do see the push in by the Scarabs. Netrioid is by himself. Will get away with the stun, landfall. Just off the mark by Hurriwind. Almost was able to tag one with that, but just a little off the mark, and Solar Scarabs will retreat from the Phoenix.
I'm pretty sure Echrome just Gallarhorned it. Hurriwind's like, I'm going to pull him, and he's like, bro, I've got a horn. You can't pull me that way. That's not how that ability works, so doesn't even have to use the beats. And that's going to be the end of this Fire Giant push for now. Another minute and 20 seconds. Gives time for Dzoni to hit level 20. The rest of the carries, though, I don't think they're hitting level 20 anytime soon. Zyrhoes level 17. Doesn't really have any sort of big item spikes besides that Polynomicon. That will help with the squishier targets, but you could tell Scary D and Hurriwind are not going to care too much about Zyrhoes' damage just yet. And Echrome was able to get the kin size, but nothing else just yet. Working on what you can assume is the Silver Branch, and that will help a little bit more DPS here for the Heimdall. But the more pressing issue is the level 17 for both of the carries. Hex Mambo cannot buy farm at the moment. It's just Dzoni who is able to run safely and steal away a lot, but none of these carries are able to hit level 20 anytime soon. One more Tier 2 tower to go, and it looks like Mambo have their eyes on it for the time being. They still have Fire Giant for another 30 seconds, so no fear in stepping up for this one.
Deathwalker didn't notice Sam walking up behind him. It'll be a full tower sweep, though, for the Solar Scarabs. All 6, or I guess the 5 remaining on the map, removed now with the Fire Giant buff. Still 15 seconds to play with, but I'm not sure if that's enough time for the Phoenix unless no one from Hex Mambo is going to step up to defend it. Dzoni and Deathwalker sitting off to the side. Scary D by himself in the Phoenix. We'll get a little bit of poke onto it before he's forced out by Trixtank. The Scarabs now with no Fire Giant will back away, but it seems that Hex Mambo may not let them go for free.
Yeah, they want to set up an ambush. Netrioid dashes in. Beautiful from Sanford Soccer.
Echrome can't get to the Bifrost in time. Just barely makes it. Landfall's going to expand. Dzoni to the backline. Finds the first crit in the team fight. And the first kill in that one. Scary D now fighting up against 3, but the crits are raining through. Triple Eagles rally. Deathwalker grabs the second kill. Hex Mambo have turned this fight back around. And Deathwalker's going to find the double root to help set up for Zyrhoes, but not enough damage just yet. Needs a little bit of extra assist. Hurriwind full HP though. Not sure you can make it out. Dzoni goes back in, finds the blink, finds the crit. Scary D doesn't get the blush, and it's a double for Dzoni and a full wipe for Hex Mambo without a single death.
That is ridiculous. Dzoni gets the 5-0 shutdown. Fire Giant is spawning back in, and Hex Mambo have flipped this game on their head, losing no one.
Can they get fire?
They definitely get Fire Giant. They get 4-0, fully stacked Rage for the Mercury, and this game just got a lot more interesting. Still down a lot of gold, but that was it. I mean, they had so much farm into Netrioid, and Netrioid was killed at the beginning of that fight. Such a beautiful engage. The knockup from Deathwalker right into the Sonic Boom. The crits rain true, and Netrioid couldn't even click Aegis. He couldn't even get up into the sky. I thought maybe the snipes were going to be able to kill Echrome because he got so weak early on, but it did not matter. And now it's time for Hex Mambo to start grabbing some towers of their own.
I mean, so much damage was pumped into Echrome at the start of that fight. I mean, there was a moment where I didn't even think he would have a chance to teleport through his Bifrost.
Yeah, I thought he was getting sniped. But
I thought he was dying while standing there, just kind of, well, I guess I'll just die on my ticket out of here. You know, this Bifrost will be my grave, but he somehow lives through, and then Dzoni finds a beautiful initiation into the backline. And now all of a sudden, this 8,000 gold lead that the Solar Scarabs had has dwindled down to essentially nothing. XP all in favor of Hex Mambo, and only 1,000 gold up now for the Solar Scarabs.
yeah, I'm not sure who made that call, because Tier 2 tower, great play. Echrome still split pushing left. You've got the advantage. You have Fire Giant for a bit longer. Grab that tower. But then the rest of the team seemed to say, hey, Echrome's still over and left. We can go for Phoenix. And that was the overextension that really bit the Scarabs. Now, Mambo should be able to grab this Gold Fury. They have 2 more Tier 2s to go through, and by the end of that, they will have all their upgraded starter items, besides for Echrome unless he wants to sell and go for dominance. And they will have also the gold lead, something they have not had throughout the entirety of this game. That Gold Fairy will push them over. Hex Mambo are now ahead for the first time since minute 0, essentially. And they still have 2 more tier 2s to go through. Zyrhoes essentially will be online after this push as well. That Chronos didn't really have any percent pen just yet. Wasn't really swinging too hard. That's all going to change. And by the way, Dzoni, he has been swinging hard. He has the damage to absolutely one-shot these squishies. He's ignoring them for now, but so much damage coming from this Mercury.
4, 0, and 4 now is Dzoni. 4, 1, and 4 for Deathwalker out of the solo lane. And if that's how Hex Mambo are going to fight 7,000 plus gold down, we get to see now what this team looks like when they're even or now ahead by 1,500 up against the Scares. I'm not sure if they've really had a lot of time to go back and spend up what they've earned earlier. Could just be a tower wipe through. Deathwalker to the back, finds 2 with the ultimate. The golden apple only hits the soul later, and it's Dzoni to the back line. Age is gone. Major Look does not find the kill, and Inferno Weave out of Sam separates the fight. But he has got to jump out. Hex Mambo have removed the tier 2 tower, but it seems that that's all they're going to be able to do on the left side.
Yeah, overstaying has been the pain in this game, and I think Hex Mambo realized that they are going to back up. ScaraD teleports in, though. He's already here full HP. I would assume Hex Mambo wants to retreat and not go for this tower, and that is going to be the call. Unfortunate for Deathwalker. Makes a beautiful salmon leap over the golden apple, and then Snoopy said, hey, I threw it at the wall, man. It's coming right back for you. And after that, was not able to do the engage that this Chulainn wanted, and also took a ton of damage from that golden apple. So once that happened, I think the rest of the team realized we can do some damage here, but we're not going to overcommit. Finally, Zyrhoes is able to get some percentage pen. The Charon's coin was just finished up. So these tankier targets, ScaraD and Hurriwind, are going to take a little bit more damage in the start of these fights, and also working towards that Soul Reaver. So there are still some power spikes to be had for Hex Mambo, but that's not to say that the Scarabs are full build either. You can tell Netrioid has been holding on to that tier 1 Death Toll for a minute. Does he want to go into the Death's Temper for the Silver Branch procs? That's usually the call for something like Rama, and that means he's going to be doing a lot more damage as well.
But with that back and with how much gold was sitting in pocket for a few of those players, we do get some extra power spikes on the opposite side. Dzoni, most notably out of all those, gets a Deathbringer on his return to base. He was already critting hard, add a little bit of extra percent damage with those crits. We'll see how he can continue to impact the fight. He made the turnaround play, a triple kill in the last team fight on a Phoenix retreat from the Scholar Scares. Remember, they were done. They said, okay, cool, we got the towers. We did our job at the Phoenix. You know, we kind of pushed them back. Let's go ahead and walk away. And the Hex Mambo said, no, you're not just going to walk away for free. End up forcing a fight and winning that one out. And that's put us at the game state we are now with a 4K lead for Hex Mambo as Fire Giant set to respawn in about half a minute.
Yeah, and it looks like the Solar Scarabs recognize they want to be standing here. They are not going to let this objective be shredded through with all the crit that Dzoni has. They're going to make sure they're here to fight. ScaraD still not level 20, wasn't able to upgrade that starter item. I was wondering if the Death's Embrace would come through, give him some extra regen, and actually help out being able to tank up this objective. But the fights have been initiated, usually by Hurriwind. He's been going for those hooks, trying to pull in just about anyone on the side of Mambo. And that really would help, just trying to force out some beads. There are a ton of beads to be forced out. Everyone but Deathwalker's got them, so taking those away at the start of a fight would make Sanford Soccer's life so much easier. This Hunbats has been finding those impactful ultimates, but if you can get the beads down first and then find an impactful ultimate, it gets that much more easy to actually engage on these fights. Hex Mambo aren't going to be the first ones to pull, though. They're going to get some more farm bounce around, and that's actually the Scarabs that are going to step up here first to this objective.
I'll stand by the pit, but ward control does, for the moment, favor Hex Mambo. That one will finally be dropped through. And Pyromancer started by the Scarabs, dropped right away, and wall off the mark by Trix. The hook will hit, and then a Monolith to at least hold Trixtank in place. Pyromancer gets flipped back over to Hex Mambo this time around, but that's just a small prize at this point. Keep your eyes on Dzoni, as he's been sitting in this mid lane the entire time while these fights have been breaking out, while these little skirmishes around the objectives have started up. All it takes is one good sonic boom through the back line of the jungle to start things out, but they're not going to give him that chance. It's ScaraD in first. Zyrhoes gets a fast rewind away from the landfall, and the apple again only hits Deathwalker, who has taken Snoopy out of this fight. Netrioid lands back in. Dzoni is now gone. He has been the turnaround for the Hex Mambo. And it's a 2-for-1, only Snoopy losing his life, but it's gonna have to be 3, because it's a triple kill for Netrioid. The shots are good, give him 4, it's a quadra kill for the Solar Scarabs Hunter to turn it right back.
Netrioid goes up into the sky and stalls that fight out so perfectly. He was 1 HP. Snoopy also took the fall, unfortunately. He was the one that Dzoni set his sights to, but if Netrioid's on the ground, he probably gets one-tapped by Dzoni there. Stalls it out just enough to come down, kill Dzoni, and then goes uncontested the rest of the fight. No one was looking towards Netrioid. They forgot how much this Rama was a hard carry for the Solar Scarabs, and now they're going to stall this out for an enhanced Fire Giant. I don't think there's anyone from Hex Mambo that can step in. Deathwalker will have teleport in 13 seconds, though. That's the only reason they wouldn't be able to stall this one out, if he's able to show up, but Scary D is already zoning. I don't even think he'll be able to get here in time.
Snoopy has respawned, so no need to wait for him any longer. It'll just be another 5 seconds until enhanced Fire Giant. The Solar Scarabs, who had the game turned on them, have turned it right back around. And we are at a dead even state, but an enhanced Fire Giant for the Solar Scarabs now. And the question to Hex Mambo is, can they remember how to take down Netrioid to the back line? Because remember, Deathwalker started that fight out, got to the back, dealt with both the carries near perfectly, but unfortunate for him, Netrioid slipped right through his fingers. It was able to get a turnaround quadra kill now. Solar Scarabs will clean up the Oni Fury on their way, but now we'll start to see some of the push for Solar Scarabs at the Phoenix. And Charlie, how does the Phoenix Siege versus the Phoenix defense look for these squads?
I mean, I'm thinking a 5v5 is out of the question. The Solar Scarabs don't really want to take that fight. It's very easy for them to just walk up and have Netrioid just like 3-tap this Phoenix. That is effortless. But splitting up the damage here of Hex Mambo is probably the call. You don't want to let Deathwalker blink in, get a knockoff, followed by a Sonic Boom. You want to split up this fight as much as possible. The only issue with that is that Dzoni could defend mid Phoenix and ult over. Dzoni could defend right Phoenix and ult over. So maybe the call will just be send like Scary D up mid, and then everyone else from the Scarabs go down the left side and see if they can just walk in and start poking this Phoenix away. They've got decent regen, and of course Hurriwind has the meditation as well with the enhanced Fire Giant, so they can walk in, try and poke this Phoenix down, not really commit too hard, and do it again. But Echrome's got no relics for 10 seconds. You'd think he wants to stay at the back of this fight if it starts soon.
Hurriwind walks out the tank. Netrioid dashes out. Sam will separate himself from the team. On the Netrioid, they'll walk over just to clear out a ward, if nothing else. Sam, a blink, fear no evil, could start this game out right for these two teams, for his team at least. Dzoni as well, trying to find the flank with the Sonic Boom. But it's going to take some time. Regen onto the Phoenix by Hex Mambo. They've got the Scepter to help out there. And once again, Netrioid, half HP, able to dash away in time, but not before he eats a lot of poke from Zyrhoes.
Yeah, you don't want to take that stun, and now, once again, just poking away slowly. You can tell the Phoenix is starting to get poked down. It's a little above half at the moment, but it has been Netrioid walking up to get that damage, and that's not easy to do with how much damage you can see that Zyrhoes is able to dish back. I'm still keeping my eyes on Dzoni. Once Solar Scarabs actually commit to this siege, it's going to be a blink in from Deathwalker. Where's it coming from?
Hurriwind, again, soaking up the damage of the Phoenix. Scary D walks back in. Eats a little bit from Zyrhoes. Scary D tanking up the Phoenix. But it's just a slow push from the Scarabs. They can't get Netrioid in for more than maybe 1 to 2 autos at a time before he's got to do just that. Roll away every single time. But that Scepter regen that's come from Hex Mambo has kept this bird alive on the left side. The junglers rotate out. Landfall's off the mark. Deathwalker goes in, but only finds the tank with the ultimate. And now he's getting yanked back in. Gets CC muted. Eagles rally to the back by Scary D. And Netrioid has found the shot. Zyrhoes just able to rewind in time to reset back to full. Finds the double stun, but Scary D has to use the beads to get out. The Phoenix gone, and a pull onto Zyrhoes. The beads are now away from the Chronos. The Aegis is gone from Echrome. It's a dash in by Netrioid. That's 2 in the fight, and that's gonna be 3 because Dzoni can't make it out. Sam shuts him down. It is Zyrhoes and Trixtank against 5, But they do not have the damage and they do not have the defense. It's the Solar Scarabs for game 1.
I mean, it seemed like only Dzoni was the one who was able to get to Netrioid once again. He was essentially free casting until the last 5 seconds of that fight. He beat Tiegis's, Dzoni's dead, and then he's able to finish that one off. Netrioid, with the Discordia passive, was able to hard carry that early game away, and then they killed him once, and then he was able to hard carry that late game away. Not to say there wasn't some great PL, there wasn't some great engage from the entirety of the Scarabs, but that Rama had to die, and it just couldn't happen.
I think a single time the question was answered of, okay, how do we kill Netrioid? It worked out, and it got the game back interesting, but after that, it kind of seems like the team forgot how to get back there aside from Dzoni. So maybe moving into game number 2, if Netrioid gets another pick like this, we see a little bit of a change from Hex Mambo as far as picks and bans are concerned to try and draft something to get to that backline. But a great start, though, at the EUSCC. And one that we were kind of wondering, how is this matchup going to go? You have the full front of Hex Mambo and essentially brand new Solar Scarabs. That new Solar Scarabs starts off the set great. It's game number 1 to them. We got game number 2 coming up right around the break.
certain for a while there that the Solar Scarabs were going to win Game 1, and then seemed destined for Hex Mambo to win Game 1. And then the Solar Scarabs end up winning Game 1. A back-and-forth affair. And teams probably feeling like they dropped the ball a couple of times, but it is the Solar Scarabs on top of Hex Mambo here in Game 1 of our best of 3. Remember, this one not a qualification or knockout game to Worlds, but Worlds just around the corner, and a great way to celebrate is with our SMITE World Championship digital loot pack, of course, featuring Atlantis Leviathan's Gilgamesh. The Leviathan's already there. They're confirmed. They won Worlds last year, and they got a really, really cool skin for it. And the Atlantis Leviathan's Gilgamesh skin, as well as a few other skins and some awesome content available in the SWC Digital Loot Pack. On sale now in-game. A fantastic primer for the remainder of this week. And the SMITE World Championship just around the corner next weekend. So game number 1 comes to a close. It's the Solar Scarabs on top of this one. And again, Myth, the ebbs and flows of this game. We're thinking, what was it? 5 minutes in, it was a 2,000 gold lead for the Scarabs. Netrioid and Hurriwind are diffing the duo lane. We're thinking it's all said and done. Hex Mambo, they win a fight. Maybe call it a bad play from the Solar Scarabs. They come back. And then take a deep breath, and the Scarabs close it out.
There was one consistent through line throughout this entire match, and you say it's Netrioid and Hurriwind. I think it's just Netrioid. This was legitimately a one-man carry project in Game 1. It is ridiculous what Netrioid accomplished.
Who's on the
here.
screen? Let's go!
Yeah, I mean, he gets the kill. Netrioid did all the damage, and he killed the ADC before this. So,
that's the end Hurriwind.
Yeah, there's and that's an ampersand as well. I'm not even going to write out the whole and.
Here's the Netrioid, right?
It's just ridiculous what he accomplished. The laning phase completely dominated by Netrioid. He rotates the team fight. He's the only one dealing massive damage and confirming the kills in those as well. I think there are perhaps maybe 2 or 3 key points in this game. It's the reinitiation from the Solar Scarabs after Fire Giant had worn off, where Hex Mambo pick up 5 and the Fire Giant, and then it's Netrioid soloing the entirety of Hex Mambo and the subsequent team fight around Fire Giant after Hex Mambo's push. I mean, it is a tale of one man. Netrioid refused to lose this game.
Gets a quad, gets a whole lot of damage. What would you say? He went silly? No, that doesn't sound right.
He went goofy.
He went goofy.
He went straight goofy.
Yeah, look, Net put it all together. That's what we're talking about. So you were totally correct on your analysis going into the game about how Rom would have solo potential in that lane and how Netrioid
I didn't think it was going to look like
could
that.
push the advantage.
I can't take any credit for
I was
that.
wrong in that I said, I don't know about the laning phase 1v1, but maybe later on in the game, Netrioid v Echrome is a lot of fun. So I was definitely wrong on the laning phase. Net goes 1-11. No, backwards. 11. 1.
That's right.
1-11's terrible.
35,000
Yeah,
damage.
God, 35k damage. The next highest is Deathwalker, who looked really good in lane at 26,000 damage. 35k damage for Netrioid and 11 kills in game number 1. It's not often, Myth, that you get big, true solo carry type of games.
Almost never.
Almost never.
Especially in competitive. It is so seldom that a game is decided by one guy.
That
Netrioid is that guy.
Yeah, felt like it there in game. And it's such an innocuous pick, the Rom, right?
Who's expecting that?
Right. I don't know. And so now if you're Hex Mambo, I think you do have to consider the Rom v Heimdall lane. That's specifically right, I think, is worth looking at. But if you ban the Rom, Netrioid has so many picks. I don't know if you're banning the Rom. You're trying to readjust maybe how the dual lane matchup looks. But I think the Solar Scarabs thrilled with the way that game 1 ends, but do have some adjusting to do. Some of the mid-game team fights gave Hex Mambo an
Just
avenue
that one.
back into the game. I said some. Some can be 1 to 3, right? No, some definitely implies more than 1. So a mid-game team fight goes Hex Mambo's way. And at least shows that they've got some fight back here in this one. Do you think, from what you saw, though, Solar Scarabs lived up to the hype in game 1?
I liked a lot of what they had put together. I really do think that they were pushing their leads a lot better than the Solar Scarabs had previously. I really liked some of the composition differences compared to what we had seen previously as well. Whether or not they lived up to the hype, I think having that one stumble, that one black mark on the match, and how sweeping it could have been, that does take away a lot from what we've heard from these other teams. Because if it's let's say it's Worlds. Let's say Solar Scarabs make it to finals, and they do that exact same situation against, I don't know, the Kings, the Dragons, the Titans, literally anybody. I'm not certain that they're getting another opportunity to fight back in. Stumbles like that can cost you on these massive stages. Fortunately for them, Netrioid went goofy, so I mean, he was able to bring it back.
Totally silly in game number 1. Game number 2, picks and bans. Deathwalker dressed up and looking for an excuse to show off the flashy fit in a post-game interview, but to do that, you got to win 2 straight now against the Solar Scarabs. Not going home with a loss here in game 2, but down to the loser side of Group B, and has to play later on today. So the loser of this set will play later on today in an elimination match. So I think that's worth looking at as well. And we'll have some promotional matches for the rest of the weekend, all culminating with 2 teams from each group headed to the SMITE World Championships. Plenty of drama still to unfold, including in picks and bans here. We're going to flop sides with Solar Scarabs over in second pick, Hex Mambo in first this time around. Still a ban, a Thor ban specifically, making its way towards Sam, who I think, while Netrioid was doing a lot of the damage, Miff, Sam facilitated nicely.
Really good old
on the
game.
Hunbats. Dzoni had some moments specifically in that one team fight where I thought the Mercury was going to start to hit critical mass. Didn't end up being the case.
Blades of light.
Ishtar left open. That'll get picked up for Echrome, one of Echrome's favorite picks, and maybe stabilizes the duo lane a bit.
Definitely has a bit more fight back potential if Netrioid tries to reprise that bully playstyle. Ishtar, possibly the best 1v1 hunter in the game, establishes really good pressure with those lob autos, and that ultimate just going to burn beads or ultimates from your opposition every single time. So Ishtar's first pick, no complaints from me. The only concern is that it is lacking in safety compared to Heimdall significantly, so could open the door for maybe some Sanford soccer rotations over towards that lane. Not that Netrioid looked like he needed it whatsoever, but you know, another lane that he can gank always feels pretty decent, and Ishtar, a phenomenal target.
Cern doesn't mind being aggressive every once in a while. We've seen Wild Hunt traded out for the Ishtar ult and vice versa plenty of times. Could be a story to follow over in the duo lane. Speaking of duo lane, completed now. For Hex Mambo, it'll be Ishtar for Echrome, and then Trixtank on one of the storied Trixtank picks.
Really?
In the Ymir. And we are back to the Chronos here, Miff. It's not a slight at Zyrhoes, but easy to forget at times that there was a Chronos in game 1 when all the eyes were on Netrioid and there simply was not a lot going on around it. He's played a lot of it. 4 out of the last 6 now for Zyrhoes and Hex Mambo, but not the performance you would have been hoping for in game 1.
And evaluate the pacing of that game. The early was dominated by the Solar Scarabs. Chronos can't bail you out of those situations, doesn't have the fight potential until maybe 3 or 4 items into the build. And the build that Zyrhoes had even elected to go towards was the slowest build in the game. Double stack in first slot, Warlocks and Book of Thoth on a late game scaling mage. This could be a situation again where the Solar Scarabs look to pressure throughout the early, and there just won't be any bailout from your mid. It's just very concerning. Sure, Hex Mambo could say, look, 26 minutes into the game, we were ahead. We were up 2K, it's fine. We hit our critical mass. It was a bit of a mistake on our part in the team fight that cost us a game that likely should have been their win from that position. But the entire game leading up to that, and even that position, was only afforded to them by mistakes from the Solar Scarab. So it is very surprising to me to see him go back towards this Chronos. Inversely, on the other side, Discordia, I had the opportunity to speak to Snoopy very briefly on the way in here to get to the desk.
Lucky guy.
And I'd said, are you going to make Netrioid do it all again? Is it on him? And you know what Snoopy had the gall to say to me?
The gumption?
The gumption.
What?
He looks me dead in my eyes. He stops in his track. I've never seen Snoopy look this serious. If you're a Snoopy fan, you watch a stream, you know this guy's a goofball. He looks at me and says, you know he had my Discordia passive, right? That was all me. You know?
Right.
and he goes right back
That
to
does
it.
sound like Snoopy.
Facilitate him. Give Netrioid the passive again.
You know, I ran into Hurriwind, not between games, but before game 1. And we kind of walked around the corner, like kind of quickly towards one another. You know what he said to me?
Good morning.
He said, whoa, sorry, I didn't expect that much handsome to be walking around the
Shut up, dude. Get out of here.
I said, right back at you. And then he walked on his way. I do have a serious question for you. We were talking about Zyrhoes. What do you think's more likely? Me rocking a mustache as well as Zyrhoes does, or me playing SMITE as well as Zyrhoes does?
Those are honestly both really impossible for you. Man.
There's no right answer. I'll let you
Yeah.
think about it as I catch up with
Please.
picks and bans here. Mercury gonna get taken away from Dzoni. Probably a good shout from the Solar Scarabs. Again, only the one instance for Hex Mambo where it felt like they were kind of roaring back, but a lot of it was Dzoni. It's a carry-style jungler. You don't want to roll the dice on that too many times. And then Chulainn also taken away. It looks really good for Deathwalker in lane that Chulainn did. And Scary D wants a bit more security on the Bologna this time around. Solar Scarabs, we're sensing a jungle and a support pick still needed. Hurriwind, when we first saw him play support, 1 or 2 gods. He's diversified the god pool a little bit.
There it is.
And it ends up being the Hurriwind Yamoja. And Myth really Yamoja for the first time here this weekend. Surprised to have not seen as much Yamoja, but Hurriwind's going to bring it out.
Yeah, Yamoja's voice line, I think, pretty apt. Don't forget, this god can dominate games. She brings phenomenal lane pressure, late game team fights dominated as well. Just the ability to force relics from your opposition, I think, is just so valuable. And when I say force relics, I don't mean, yeah, she'll burn your beads, because she will. I'm talking about forcing you into a Phantom Shell. Yamoja will do it every single time. If you don't purchase a Phantom Shell, especially with the top 3 already locked in for Mambo, you're dead to rights from one good ultimate. And one good ultimate at the 25-minute mark could very well end the game at the 26-minute mark. So Yamoja, a pick that I had expected to see a bit more consistently, had fallen off a bit, but I expect Hurriwind to have a good performance on it.
A Wheelix and now Xing Chen. So you've added a bit of lockdown for that gravity surge at the end of your draft if you're Hex Mambo. Requires some execution though. Dzoni, of course, very talented and therefore very confident. Now you get a full look at the 5 of Hex Mambo here, Myth. Talked about the Chronos a little bit earlier on. Does it feel a bit more well-rounded to you with the final 2 picks?
It's a very different composition. Different from what we're used to seeing in the SCC, different from the SPL, different from standard SMITE meta. But when you evaluate each piece and what it brings to this draft, I like it holistically more than their Game 1 composition. In the late game team fight, you've got 2 strong, steadfast initiators. Ymir and Xing Chen going to act as a wall to create space for this Ishtar and Chronos. The Awelish has a very strong early game, so you've got the potential now for Dzoni to act as a bridge for Zyrhoes, get active elsewhere, maybe even rotate over, and stop Netrioid if he has a similar performance to what we had seen in Game 1. I really do like how this looks for Mambo. The only concern, again, is whether or not they can keep pace. They got really blitzed in Game 1. It was minute 1, already 3-0 or 3-1 for the Solar Scarabs. Now they've had a bit of a time to readjust and acclimate to the SPL pace of game. I expect them to have some differences here, maybe in pathing, maybe in when they decide to take their fights, or even perhaps in the builds as well. I wouldn't want to see this Chronos go for the double stack again. It just really slowed down his game.
Yeah.
But I like the adaptations made by Mambo, and I think Solar Scarabs now have to think about how they want to approach that late, early to mid-game phase.
Yeah, still feels well-rounded, though, from the Solar Scarabs. A playmaking style of draft that can get off to a good start. Naja, the final pick, though, for the Solar Scarabs. That'll be, again, another new pick for Sanford Soccer in the last 6. It was Hunbats and Hunbats separated in Game 1 just now, and then Game 6 about a month ago. Now the Naja returns to 6 different gods in the last 6 games. And look, Sam's played plenty of games on this Naja. I think there's some good setup here, a lot of individual target lockdown. You think backline dive simple here for Sam, or is there enough to disrupt that from Hex Mambo?
Naja, when you're playing at the highest level, is very difficult to execute on because everybody in this game, all 10 players in this game, are capable of reaction beads and Windfire Wheels, even raw. You don't need to set it up with the Sash either. So you look at the rest of the composition from the Solar Scarabs and how adept they are at burning beads. Sure, Cern can do it. If you're connecting with the Wild Hunt, you're probably getting somebody's. Eagle's Rally, a little bit less so. Discordia, a little bit less so, unless you're already ahead. That Strife, not exactly a massive pressure point. So I think it is going to be difficult for Sanford Soccer to find value from the ultimate. But when you look at maybe some of the targets on Hex Mambo, you can limit some of the early game potential. If I'm a Wheelish right now, every single game you lock in a Wheelish, you want Blink, you want to get active, you want to play at level 3. But when you look at the other side and there's a Naja staring you down, might restrict you into those beads.
Plenty of storylines to follow going into game 2. Plenty of questions for J-Mac and Trelly. Are the Scarabs going to win? Can I ever rock a mustache as well as Zyrhoes? Let's find out.
Well, I don't know if we can answer the second one in this game, Dave. That might take a little bit of time for you, but we can see if the Solar Scarabs can win out this set in a 2-0 fashion against the SCC squad. It is J-Mac, Charlie, and Doug back for game number 2 with Hex Mambo and Solar Scarabs. And a little bit of a different look from the front line and of the initiation for Hex Mambo, Charlie. This is a wheelish, couple of ideal setup targets that he can pull. Basically anybody that walks through a Riptide from Hurriwind is going to be a target, but also some setup from his own team with Deathwalker on the Xingqian.
Yeah, that could be the call. Just try and follow around Deathwalker. I mean, we saw how Hex Mambo wanted to play game number 1. It was Dzoni and Deathwalker in the right side of the map. And they said, all right, good luck, duo lane. We're gonna see you later. We're going to see you at level 20. And they did fast track to level 20. And I like how the desk highlighted. There was a point where Hex Mambo should have been able to win that game despite how much damage Netrioid was doing, how safe he was, and how hard he was carrying. And they kind of fumbled it this time around. So this is the comp they go to when they don't want to be able to fumble. Deathwalker going that full damage style of Xingqian. In the early, you do pivot into some defense later on. But the Conduit Gem and the Pythax does mean you're going to have some great clear and great damage. However, you do also open yourself up to a gank. No beads in the Xingqian, so that teleport could mean that Sanford Soccer wants to head over there. But if you're not killing off the Eagles rally, you're probably getting thrown underneath a tower, something like that. There's a lot of CC this Xingqian does have. Another thing to look at is how much pressure Echrome should be able to grab on the Ishtar. It's not like Cern is a slouch in the early, but you just have so much better clear on this Ishtar with those AoE auto attacks. Wouldn't be surprised if we saw more pressure from the duo lane this time around.
It's really hard to compete with those lob shots that Echrome can fire out on the Ishtar. You can already see the pressure that's been able to amount for Hex. Zyrhoes takes a sash from Sam, but recognizing that there's not too much kill pressure this early in the game, will maintain his beads for the time being. Dzoni rotates in just to give him a little bit of extra hand. Now with the level 2s available, actually, beads gone from Dzoni during that one. Snoopy and Sam able to bully out the jungler, and now puts Dzoni in a very dangerous position this early on in the game.
Yeah, he should be able to just stay back. As long as you're not getting strifed into a big sash, should be just fine. And Zyrhoes can pretty much always return damage from the sash if Sanford Soccer wants to go in aggressively without Windfire Wheel. So I don't think I'm expecting too many sparks to fly in mid, especially because both of these junglers decided not to go Blink. I think it's a smart call, but it's also a slow call, right? They're not trying to throw any early kills, not trying to give any early leads, because we know what Dzoni can do with a lead. We know what Sanford Soccer can do with a lead. Your jungle starts getting a little bit worse. Your carries start feeling that pain as well. Probably smart just to go for the safer relic. You can get more active at level 12, but if there are some free kills just gift wrapped it for you, I'm sure they'll be able to find those as well.
I was wondering what cooldowns Deathwalker had to get away, because if that bludgeon connected, could have been first blood. The Scarabs ring toss hits, bounces off the totem to get a couple of extra shots onto Dzoni. Deathwalker sustained back up, but how much sustained does he have to keep fighting against Scary D? Scary D's got to go back and help out Sam. Seen a lot, Feather Step, not enough damage. One more auto from Dzoni, though. We'll turn that one back around. And Deathwalker on his warpath back in will be able to make some space for maybe a blue buff invade. Scary D walks up. This may be the death of the Bologna. Beads expended to make sure that he can get away. But his blue buff actually will be secured by him, mistimed by Dzoni on the Feather Step.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. And I think that Scary D played it really well, because Dzoni was about to kill Sanford Soccer, then got disarmed, couldn't actually auto-attack for the Feather Step, but unfortunately for Sam, was not able to close gap, was not able to run away, and still first blood going the way of the Awilix. So Dzoni does have that lead we were talking about, does have a little bit of extra time to maybe rotate over to left lane, get some kills, has more gold in hand, so he's able to finish that first item first, assuming that Sanford Soccer doesn't get active in the next couple seconds. And once you finish that first mace item, your farm just gets so much faster, your damage is amplified by a ton. Depending on whether you go Crusher Jotuns or Brawlers, really doesn't matter at this point. You're just going to be doing an absolute ton of damage. But I want to see where Dzoni goes with it. It's probably going to be over towards right. Scary D's ult is available, but no beads, so could very easily get a Gravity Surge off once Dzoni hits level 5 off a good knockup from Deathwalker. And if you ult, you're probably forcing that Eagles Rally for free, so Soul Lane does look pretty good right now for Hex Mambo.
Hex Mambo, Deathwalker just a little bit behind. in XP. Will use the ultimate on the Scary D, throws him under the tower, has the knockup to root him in place, but diminishing returns is really the saving grace for Scary D there. With Dzoni so far away, no real kill pressure on the Bologna just yet. So Dzoni instead will rotate over towards mid to help out Zyrhoes with the mid camps.
Yeah, smart by Scary D, and the minions were tanking for him. That was a bit unfortunate, but also holding on to that ultimate just so you're not leaving yourself open to a gank. Beautiful feather step, but unfortunately Trix still getting hit. Dzoni should have the range here to confirm that kill, and that's another one for the Awilix. 2-0 and a red buff invade. Sanford Soccer, too little, too late, is not going to be able to help out Snoopy. Loses the beads, loses the ult, loses his life.
This answers up some of the concerns that was in the game number 1 drive. Remember, game 1 for Hex Mambo was essentially a full commit to the late game. Once they kind of got to that mid game, they were able to fight. Now with a little bit more early pressure, a bit of earlier pick from Dzoni, it's worked out real well for Hex Mambo to start things out. About a 700 gold lead in favor of the Hex Mambo team over Solar Scarabs. Not a significant lead yet, not quite the 2K that we saw built up by the Solar Scarabs last time, but that took a few kills plus some neutral objective steals in order to get that lead.
Yeah, there's not going to be too much farming to be done at the moment. It's just, you know, get your Scorpions. Like, losing Greater Scorpion for the Scarabs does kind of sting because you lose your upgraded buffs and you lose a fair bit of gold. So Hex Mambo are continuously pushing that lead any way they can when Dzoni's not around. So goodbye Trix and Zyrhoes, just finding farm wherever it's due and also denying that farm from the Solar Scarabs. But you got to imagine Hurriwind is trying to get active somewhere. I mean, he does have the River's Rebuke. He can set up for his team nicely. There are no Phantom Shells available. Trix got regular shell, but hasn't been able to upgrade it. So, you know, Zyrhoes would have to rewind out of that. That would be trouble. Trix could get stuck in. I'm just thinking Sanford Soccer has been spending a lot of time on the right side of the map. Not so much trying to carry through Netrioid anymore. I guess if Netrioid doesn't get first blood, Sam doesn't feel confident on the left side of the map.
Yeah, it is a little strange to see that they're not putting any pressure on Echrome this time, where last game, that was where everything was for the Solar Scarabs to find some success. Get Netrioid a couple of kills, allow him to get some early farm up over Echrome, but now the shoe's on the other foot. Dzoni will just walk away. No ult from Sam this time. Maybe recognizing that the beads are still up and the Awila should be an ult trade for beads, and then that could put Sam in a dangerous spot. Wall, not sure if the wall blocked the sash there, but will set up for that. Ultimate off the mark by Sam. He'll get stunned down by River's Rebuke to lock in Trixtank. He is as good as dead on the return from there, but it's a 1-for-1 trade out. Pull and get the beads off a Hurriwind. Dzoni still goes through, and Zyrhoes funneling around the back line. Doesn't find the stun on the Hurriwind. They'll give the kill over to Dzoni. Puts 3 in a row for the jungler and 1 for Echrome.
That's a beautiful trade there. You are fine with losing Trixtank and getting 2 more kills for yourself. And now it looks like a little bit of a scrap over here with Deathwalker and Scary D, but Deathwalker did use his ultimate, whereas Scary D has the Eagles rally to try and escape if anyone shows up. Johnny's on the way though. Scary D, he needs to leave. I don't think he realizes how quickly Suku can arrive, and Deathwalker might be able to spot him out. This should be at least a force of the ultimate, but it looks like that's not the call. Deathwalker lost track of where Scary D was. Now, that's when Johnny's gonna show up.
Yeah, did get a little bit out of Scary D. Dzoni here, dismounts off Fasuku, gets the knockup, waits out the Eagles rally, jumps. And I don't know what, you can even see Dzoni's upset about that one. He does not even understand what he just did.
I mean, Scary D couldn't have played it worse, but doesn't matter if Johnny's gonna jump wide left. What? I don't know what he was saying there, but it was probably like, my finger slipped. Like that had to be just a fat finger move.
That's not where he was going. Who jukes that way?
Yeah.
That's always my line, is when I miss something, I'm like, yo, who jukes that way?
I mean, he went right for tower. He didn't even juke. My man just ran.
Like, beelined it.
Yeah, Scary D didn't save the disarm for the feather step. He ulted out as quickly as he could, obviously, but unfortunate there. You're 3-0, so Dzoni not the worst in the world, but finally some pressure towards Echrome, this time from Hurriwind, but here comes Trix. He is not going to let his hunter take any sort of pressure. 1-0 for the Ishtar. Probably smart to babysit this lane just to make sure that Hurriwind's not going to be able to force out any relics.
Yeah, give Echrome maybe a fighting chance in this game, because all the way until about 25 minutes of game 1, Echrome didn't really get to play Smite. He got to play, wait till they're done doing what they can do, and then I sit back and I pick up the scraps of whatever's left in my lane and in my jungle, which wasn't very much. It was constant purple buff invades. by the Scarabs to keep the Hunter of the Hex Mambo down. So Echrome finally happy that he gets an opportunity to sit back and farm, get this Devourer's Gauntlet, stack it up for himself, and at least keep even in the early game. Hex Mambo, with their 4 kills, have been able to get themselves about a 2K gold lead almost. Hurriwind walled off, frozen, stunned again, but a beautiful strike catches 3. Eagles rally, grabs 2, and the River's Rebuke will lock in a couple as well. Rewind will get Zyrhoes out of danger, but Sam lands in the worst place possible. Trixtank gets knocked out of the bludgeon, pulled back by Dzoni. Trixtank is out, and Deathwalker throws 2 against the wall. 1 more in the grave, and a knock-up on a Scary D once again to save the day. Zyrhoes finds the stun, but Scary D takes 1 down before he falls.
I mean, Scary D should have been able to find 1. That was an incredible amount of peel. Dzoni and Deathwalker showing up massive. Unfortunately, the Scourge was able to connect on a Trix eventually. That Ymir is not fast enough to run away, but that is a beautiful fight. Finally, Hex Mambo are pulling ahead in a massive way. That gold lead is looking real crisp. Almost 3K without any objectives done. The Pyromancer spawned in during that scrap, so that could be something that Mambo looked towards, but also Gold Fury on the left side of the map. Once Echrome finishes his next item, they'll have plenty of DPS for that as well. But not be surprised if that's where they turn their heads to. But remember, usually once you're ADC to rotate over for these early Pyromancers, if you don't have an auto attack style solo laner, Deathwalker, really not doing that much damage to a Pyro. Zyrhoes can do a bit, but with his build so far, you would like to finish that first pen item before you're really chunking towards these objectives. So wouldn't be surprised if Echrome either A, makes a rotation over towards Pyro, or B, Hex Mambo says, hey, let's fight through duo lane. Let's go over towards that Gold Fury. We've got the burst, we've got relics down. Same for Soccer. I mean, he's looking level 10, 0-3 on the Najah, and no beats for 80 seconds. Not very safe on this Najah pick so far.
And Dzoni, part of all 7 kills on the map so far. 4-0-3 for the Awelish. And Gold Fury, a ward down for the Solar Scarabs in that pit, but Oracle Harpies grant the vision inside of the pit for the Hex Mambo as well. Don't imagine we'll see a pull of that until one of those 2 things fade away, whether that be the Oracle Vision or the Sentry Ward that was placed there by the Solar Scarabs. But taking an immediate roundup, we can see that the majority of the lead for Hex Mambo in the XP department has come from the jungle. Dzoni level 12 versus the level 10 on Sam for Soccer, 1 level separating the Hunters. Snoopy able to just barely get away from a freeze there, but Echrome going for the boxing match. Dashes in aggressively against Netrioid. This is an all-in commit, and it's ult for ult on the 2 Hunters. Netrioid gonna beads early, expecting maybe that Rising Jaguar to go through. Not sure if Dzoni was trying to blink to get in with the hit or what it may have been there, but doesn't come up with either.
He was trying to get the knock-up, free blink, and be able to follow up there, but a good beads, honestly. I think Netrioid made the smart call. He's like, wait, I hear a Rising Jaguar. I'm not going to turn around in time. I might as well just pre-beads. I don't want to get rooted out. And then you waste Johnny's blink as well. So you do have an opening for a gank. Now Echrome should be able to find some fight over on the left side of the map as well if you're able to use that stun. However, you get to live, and that's what's important. So Netrioid's going to back up here, and Echrome has a 2-level lead currently in the duo. And this is why I'm surprised there's no attempt at a Gold Fury pull so far. It's been all on the right, and actually Sam for Soccer is going to pull the Pyromancer. Hex Mambo's got to show up to this fast.
Scarabs started up. Dzoni maybe over the wall with the steal. A little too early on the Jaguar this time around, but where a Pyromancer was taken for Solar Scarabs, Hex Mambo respond back with an instant Gold Fury to mitigate the gold that the Scarabs had earned back through. 3K up for Hex Mambo and a blue buff secured for Scary D. Deathwalker still with a slight level advantage in the solo lane, and Johnny's rotation over. No level 12 for Sam yet. Deathwalker's going deep under the tower, but Dzoni may not be going for the commit with him just yet.
Yeah, not the call. I think a little early on the knock-up as well. You could tell Deathwalker's like, I got him, and there was no ult. This time, there's the knock-up, there's the beats, and Dzoni should be able to land this time around, and that Feather Step will connect. Actually, didn't even need it, thanks to the help from Trix and a good wall placement. So Scary D loses the beats and his life. Tier 1 tower could be the target, but Sam for Soccer is hiding around. I was going to say one good wall placement, and Sam could be in trouble, so probably smart not to defend that tower. But Hex Mambo can do no wrong at the moment. They are just forcing their leads where they see them. And now there's a 5-0 Awelix on the map. if Solar Scarabs could find some damage on the Dzoni, that would be a nice shutdown. That'd be a nice prize for them to claim, but it seems like good positioning all around, and Johnny's not taking any fights that he can't confidently win.
I mean, we're getting into not quite Netrioid levels of territory from game 1 as far as a lead that Johnny has over Sam, but gold-wise, we're definitely starting to get there. Over 4,000 up for Hex Mambo, 14 minutes in the game. This is definitely the same pacing that we saw from Solar Scarabs in the first game. It seems that Hex Mambo been able to mirror that. And a 2-level lead for Echrome. He'll dash to try and cut off some of the path of Netrioid, but man, those snipe shots coming through from Echrome. Though reduced damage, crit is still a crit. But with 2 people on the rotation in from Hex Mambo and a couple ultimates burned through, stun will only hit onto 1. Echrome wants 1 before he goes down, and he almost gets it. Johnny will clean up the kill. Somehow Echrome lives a 3-man rotation, and it's Johnny who comes up pay dirt with it.
I am amazed. I thought for sure Echrome was just like, okay, I'm going to try and take out Netrioid before I go, but was able to live through a perfectly timed Aegis and actually dashes in. Snoopy doesn't quite have the damage to finish this one. It's going to be close, but it looks like should be just fine. And Johnny's still sitting around the corner wanting to engage. Snoopy dashes in, but looks like Johnny's not going to take the bait, does not have the blink to close gap. And that was a beautifully timed, I mean, both relics there from Echrome. The fight is not over. Now Snoopy's in even more trouble.
Snoopy running, he gets slowed down by Trixtank and beaten down by Johnny. Unstoppable on the Awelish. Hex Mambo have completely flipped the script from game number 1, and they are now in a commanding lead over the SPL squad. Deathwalker 2 levels up on Scary D, Johnny 2 up over Sam, and now a 3-level deficit in both mid and carry for Hex Mambo.
All the while, Zyrhoes was just power farming. This is what I expected in game number 1, and this is why I was shocked to see him go Warlocks. This is what happens when you just go Divine Ruin. You don't have to worry about stacking. You have crazy damage output. And of course, Snoopy has to make rotations to save his team. And Zyrhoes says, hey, my team doesn't need saving. I'm going to be farming. I'm level 17 at 16 minutes, and I've only been a part of half of our kills so far. Less than half. So this is the farming that I've expected from Zyrhoes, and this is what I'm happy to see. Hex Mambo does have about a 6k gold lead, and they're trying to climb even further, but they've got some time before that Primal Fury spawns in. Pyromancer is relatively mirrored, because remember they were done at the same time. And that Fire Giant is looking all the more doable. I mean, Echrome's got crit online, has the Executioner, you got a Polynomic on Chronos, and you have good burst damage. When you look at the levels of the Solar Scarabs, their XP, no one is going to be able to step up to that Fire Giant safely. I mean, Snoopy could toss an apple in, but that's about it. You do not want to be in the jungle when Hex Mambo are looking for you right now.
Johnny rotating over, yanks Scary D back. Eagles rally to get out, but a lot of gap close from Hex Mambo. With Soccer showing up and a ring bounce going between the two. Not much further chase for Hex Mambo this time, despite the fact that they've now rotated 4 people to the right side of the map. That leaves a 2v1 on the left side. Blue buff invade by Johnny will be successful, so Deathwalker gets the rest on having yet another buff stolen away. And now Echrome could be in danger if he walks too far forward. I say that, but I just watched him survive a 3-man gank earlier, too. That's even easier.
Relics in 4.
And he dashes out. It was fine.
I thought Hurriwind was going to find the ult there, but no, I was going to say, Echrome's Relics were up in 4. And honestly, I'd be confident taking this 2v1. Echrome has way more damage. He's got crit online. Netrioid's got Exi and Kins, but I think level 18 Ishtar probably feels just fine trying to take this engagement. Hurriwind just is not that tanky. And Johnny trying to find a solo against Soccer also hovering around in the jungle. That Primal Fury did spawn in, and Mambo are going to rotate on to it. Soccer, no, he's not going to show up. I was going to say, stopped his back maybe to walk in, but too little too late, barring maybe a bubble bounce from Hurriwind. It's on point.
Bubble hits.
They're going to wait it out.
But Hex Mambo do get the primal.
Don't you hate when people play smart?
Bro, that's...
If it's me, I'm 50-50 in the bubbles.
Dude, imagine playing smart. Could not be me.
No, definitely not.
But will be Hex Mambo, and that's what's got them. They're 8,000 plus gold lead right now, sitting around nearly 8,500 up. And it's just going to get worse, because not only is it a Primal Fury, it's a Pyromancer to boot. Hex Mambo are just dominating game number 2 off the back of Johnny, really. 7-0-3 on the Awelish. There's not much more I can say about that. This has been the Johnny show, and when Hex Mambo can get one of 2 specific players rolling, it feels like it's game over for the enemy. One of them is Deathwalker, and that sometimes depends on his pick. But if Johnny's having a pop-off game, feels like you can't even touch this team.
Yep, and of course, Zyrhoes is on his way to hit 20 before 20. Netrioid does have both relics here, so is going to be just fine. Not going to take too much damage. I'm thinking Echrome hits 20, upgrades one more time, and then heads for Fire Giant. Even if you can't upgrade one more time, it's about time for that Fire Giant should be looked at. You're essentially just letting the Solar Scarabs sort of limp to the finish line here if you're not forcing that objective soon. Trebuchet over on left would be a nice time, but it looks like that's going to be the call here. Slowly but surely, duo lane is trekking over. Trixtank's on zone duty as well, making sure that Echrome doesn't jolt into the enemy. But this is time. What's going to be the defense? Scary D can call this out immediately. He knows Fire Giant's being looked at. Netrioid is going to stay in left. That's a smart call. Get farm, but at the moment, it's Scary D and Snoopy's on his way.
Hurriwind over as well. Snoopy pretty far, and the Fire Giant going fast. Hex Mambo will grab this one. Eagles rally in will only be the deathbed of Scary D as he goes down, and a Fire Giant right at the 20-minute mark goes to Hex Mambo, and it could be dangerous waters for Sam and Hurriwind if they get caught out, but they'll path back to the jungle to the left side of the map.
I don't hate that play from Scary D. He's 1-3. He's not worth anything. He went into kin size, so clearly he's trying to do damage as opposed to be tanky, so might as well go for that steal as Hurriwind gets caught out. Is probably going to fall very quickly. I didn't think he would use the ultimate, but did, just to try and stall out some of the time of this Fire Giant as Netrioid's going to hide behind the wall and be able to return to base. That tier 2 and right drops, and now Hex Mambo can push to the tier 1 and left, as well as the last standing tier 2 towers. And I don't think... You're going to ask me how they come back, and I'm not seeing a single person that can stand up to the damage of Hex Mambo. Scary D is going 2 essentially non-tank items in a row. That Bellona is never going to be able to live through Echrome or Zyrhoes' damage.
13K and climbing deficit that the Solar Scarabs are in right now. Nearly hitting 15,000, 21 minutes in the game. Feels nearly impossible for the Scarabs to come back in, but we have seen comebacks before at this level of deficit. We've seen 20Ks, we've seen 15Ks, we've seen all kinds of wild stuff in the game of Smite, but it's going to come off of Phoenix defenses now, Charlie, because that's all that the Solar Scarabs have at this point in the game.
I think his 3 just cleared red buff. That's crazy. I mean, usually you got a 3-1. I mean, he had a poly shot, of course, but that just means how far ahead Zyrhoes is to the scaling of the buffs. That is absurd. Gets an alternate timeline as well. As if killing Zyrhoes once wasn't enough, they're going to have to do it twice. Scary D, one wall will do it, but some good escape potential here from Hurriwind. Trix still has the angle, though. Now, one more Riptide should be enough to get the Bellona out. Eagles rally down, but now it's time for left side Phoenix already. Snoopy immediately has to channel that back. And Trix is just going to walk in. He's got no fear.
Freeze on Hurry. Snoopy trying to poke Echrome. Echrome trying to return the favor. Does so most at Hurriwind's health bar. Zyrhoes, who's out on the beats to start this fight. That could be a target for Sam for soccer, but Sam's got to be able to get that far into the back line to fight against Hex Mambo. We're pushing up, 15K golden lead into the Phoenix. Trixtank and Deathwalker now joining the team. Should be a full 5-on-5 for the left side, but Hex Mambo are very cautious, waiting for their minion wave.
Yeah, unfortunately for Hurriwind, no beats available, so Deathwalker could pretty easily blink in, knock him up, get a pull in from Johnny, and that could be the pick that starts off this fight. River's Rebuke is available, and unfortunately, Zyrhoes did bait out Trix's shell. So there's no Phantom Shell here. That could be rough.
Well, we don't need the Naga. We'll just grab the ultimate to yank Hurriwind right back in the middle of 5. He's gone to the damage from Echrome. Golden Apple does hit Trix. Echrome dashes away, and it's now 4v5 for Solar Scarabs to try and defend their bird, but Hex Mambo spent so many resources trying to kill Hurry, they didn't put any of the damage into the Phoenix just yet. Now, with the man advantage and Eagles rally from Scary D, frozen on landing. Zyrhoes thrown up in the sky. This could be a pick that the Solar Scarabs need, but the follow-up damage isn't there. Aegis in time and a rewind. Zyrhoes is back in. One more down as Netrioid's in the grayscale. Scary D is down, and a wall will block off the path. Can Snoopy make it back? Only by the luck of the Aegis to make sure that he can find it through The left Phoenix falls, and Hex Mambo will fall back.
I'll see they're going to full-on retreat here. Fire Giant runs off in 10 seconds, but maybe one more attempt at a pick. Sam4Soccer sashes in, and I don't think you want to be that close to Echrome. Mid-Phoenix also going to drop down. And finally, the retreat. 24 minutes in, 2 birds down, and Hex Mambo are pushing up to a 20,000 gold lead. That is absolutely absurd. Like I said, even getting the beads off of Zyrhoes, baiting out the Phantom Shell before the fight starts, and a beautiful ult from Sam4Soccer was not enough to net a kill onto Zyrhoes. Perfectly timed Aegis, and the rewind was crisp, but that's one of the issues about the Naja and Discordia comp. You just body block the apple if it's ever going to come through, and not enough follow-up from the Stripe and Unruly Magic to actually get a kill early on, especially when Snoopy does not have the itemization that Zyrhoes has. So there's just no way they're going to be able to kill this Chronos anytime soon. Didn't even proc the alternate timeline.
I was just thinking that.
I just realized it wouldn't even have mattered. He would have just waited a second, then rewinded anyways, and they would have wasted everything and gotten, well, they would have got his cooldown. That would have been nice.
Cooldown is always something. But speaking of cooldown, it's only a few seconds left until Fire Giant has respawned. Solar Scarabs down 2 Phoenixes. 2 players on the left side of the map, and maybe only Scary D is a saving grace to try and steal it away. He'll walk up, a Fire Giant respawns, and Hex Mambo are immediately on top of it. They'll go through and knock that one out with no contest from the Solar Scarabs. And it feels like Hex Mambo are just one good pick, one good fight away from maybe ending this game. Deathwalker and Dzoni continue to push up mid. With only 1 Phoenix left standing, the Solar Scarabs gonna have to put their everything in defending that final bird.
Well, the good news is 4 sets of beads are up for the Scarabs, so Deathwalker can't just blink in, get a pull, and get a pick before the fight starts. Assuming, of course, that Snoopy is able to immune any of his CC with the ultimate. But it looks like right side bird is going to be an afterthought here. Oh.
Scary?
My man.
You okay, bro? Did your W key get locked in? I'm not sure. But Scary D's down for 48. And the Phoenix is down for a few minutes. 5 versus 4. Hex Mambo charge into the backline. Hurriwind dead on landing. It's a double kill for Dzoni. Dzoni going for another one to the backline on Snoopy. That's a triple for him. Sam makes it back to the fountain. Netrioid low. Sam stuns out of the fountain. But Dzoni may just have to rest on the triple while Hex Mambo will poke away. No, Dzoni wants a little bit more. Doesn't get the damage. He'll die through. But so does the Titan, and Hex Mambo in 26 tie up the set.
Imagine not getting the Penta and well, not going godlike, and dying? 12-1?
Terrible.
That just looks so much worse than 12-0. What a fantastic early game, though. We were concerned about seeing the Chronos double locked in. We were concerned about Hex Mambo trying to coast the late game. That was not their game plan. Their game plan was get this a wheelers ahead, have Deathwalker set up indefinitely, and we'll worry about late game later. We're going to fight right now. 12-0, well, 12-1. He ended up dying in the well. What a fantastic performance throughout the entirety of the Mambo, but, I mean, Dzoni just carried that one so hard in the early.
Yeah, it was step 1, get Dzoni to carry. Step 2, question mark, which was the entire of how do we do it, and step 3 was the profit for Hex Mambo. They're able to take game number 2, tie up the set against the SPL squad, and put themselves one step closer to being on the winner's side of the bracket. Only 1 game left in this best of 3. Remember, no elimination yet, but we'll see who gets to move on to the winners for game 3 right after this.
Well, I've been told that we gotta interview players, and it seems the rally's ended. Deathwalker, explain the drip to me, man. What's going on here?
I gotta get suited up for what I'm about to do to them, you know?
What are you gonna do to him?
Can't show that on camera, can I?
You have to be able to show it on camera because we're literally broadcasting it, but that's fine. How's it feel to be back in the studio, man? What's going on?
Back in the studio, it feels kind of weird, but it feels good weird.
It feels good. Weird.
I'm actually excited to meet the spell players, and overall, there's a chance I meet Fred again, but on the other side this time. So that's gonna be exciting. I hope we're gonna win just to beat Onis next.
Okay. What do you think your odds are, Trix?
I mean, against Scarabs, I think they're quite good. I think we've been showing good performances overall. So I say we take this one, 2-0, and then we meet Onis, and then we'll see.
Maybe 3-1. 2-0, then 3-1 call from Deathwalker and that boy Trix. Reels, talk to me about it, man. Reese's, you get to eat that across the pond, or is that just here?
No, I mean, we have them a little bit, but not so much. They're very popular here compared to UK, yeah. Very good. I like them.
And there you have it. An indictment? No, the opposite. Oh. Yeah, what do you want to talk about?
We're just gonna destroy them. That's it.
Keeps it simple. Thank you very much. That's Hex Mambo. They're confident.
first game 3 of the weekend, and why wouldn't it be, between Solar Scarabs and Hex Mambo. This is a dominant performance from the EU SEC team, making good on some of the clean dress that Deathwalker brought into studio here today. A well-rounded team composition. Dzoni, the hard carry out of the jungle, at the forefront of all of our conversation. My goodness, it's a great look for Hex Mambo. And back to the drawing board for the Solar Scarabs. And so now, Miff, Hex Mambo rolling with a bit of momentum here going into Game 3. Not an elimination game, not a promotion game to the SWC, but you're really setting the stage for the rest of the weekend here. And I think this is the potential that we thought was missing in Game 1 from Hex Mambo.
Yeah, it's just clean performance through and through. I think the primary takeaway is that they established their lead and they never let go of it. That is so, so important to not fumble situations where you are essentially guaranteed a win. And I would argue at around that 18-minute mark, it's a guaranteed win for Hex Mambo. Just phenomenal pressure output from Dzoni. Exactly what you'd ask for from this Awelish. Just rotate through, be that bridge into the late game, establish pressure, play around your synergies. And the synergy was Trixtank could just walk up, knock up, gravity surge every single time, and then rely on your Chronos in the latest portions of the game to pick up some of that slack. Loved every single bit of it. Echrome gets a bit of a redemption tour in Game 2 as well. Doesn't necessarily dominate the lane, but holds his own and establishes a lead and rotates the team fights properly. This was a match that was almost entirely decided by jungle. And maybe it's my jungler bias, but Dzoni was just everywhere. Everywhere he needed to be and then some. It just wasn't allowing Sanford Soccer to farm up whatsoever. Rotated through team fights, made it happen on his own as well. Great stuff from Hex Mambo. And it's off the adaptations in the draft phase. In Game 1, it's Hex Mambo playing their standard, let's go triple hyper late game and hope that we get there, or if it's just a standard day on a standard Wednesday in the EU SEC, we'll just dominate the early game regardless. Yeah. This time it's adaptation. Sure, we could still get some of our flavor picks, some of our favorites, but let's build that bridge. Let's facilitate our late game pieces, and they look so much better for it.
I mean, Zyrhoes was under almost no pressure that game. I mean, did, just shy of 10,000 damage, so it was on the lower end of all the carries in the game, but still didn't feel much pressure on the Chronos. Another game, though, where one of the carries just obliterates the damage meters. I mean, though it was Dzoni who ends up with most of the kills here, Echrome does 33,000 damage, where the next highest in this game is right around that 20,000 mark. It was the same for Netrioid in Game 1. And honestly, Miff, and I think there's some really good Twitter conversation going on around this match, and a really good point I've seen some make are really around Netrioid now. And in considering, all right, Game 1, he dominated on Ram. Game 2 looked very quiet on Cern. And potentially now Hex Mambo, Miff, as we move into picks and bans for Game 3. Might need to consider banning out the Ram. If the Solar Scarabs feel like they got a crazy game from Netrioid in Game 1 on Ram, very quiet on the Cern in Game 2. I wonder if the Scarabs may be feeling the pressure to early pick a Ram and thus maybe Hex Mambo considering an early ban.
I'm not so certain that Hex Mambo need to consider the ban as long as they aren't moving back towards the Heimdall.
Sure.
It is Echrome's favorite pick, and it could be potentially on their mind, but otherwise, I feel like Ram okay to let through. The biggest adaptation I'm looking at going into Game 3 is this Bologna pick for Scary D. I didn't see value in the win, and I certainly didn't see value in the loss. This pick just has not been working out for him.
It was first pick.
Yeah, first pick as well. The priority level of it is just ridiculous. I think maybe it's an answer, a preemptive answer to the Chronos that's been coming out. If you're worried about the Polynomicon procs or just the shred on objectives or a shred on Phoenix, the disarm is incredibly valuable, but it just has not worked out, and I think you need to be willing to make the adaptation. Again, though, a very early selection, a god that we've been seeing banned out a fair bit so far during this event, but surprised to see the Solar Scarabs really, really leaning into Scary D's pick.
Amaterasu, strong for both Deathwalker and Scary D. Just a strong pick in general. Again, though, now carries extra weight. You need to see return on investment. If you're going to pick the Amaterasu first and foremost, you got to hope at least can go even in lane, won't get steamrolled by Dzoni and Deathwalker, or just accept that might happen and put pressure elsewhere. Cern for Hex Mambo, because Hex Mambo, all right, so this is an interesting development now, Miff, in the ADC pick ban conversation. Hex Mambo do move away from the Heimdall. Remember, Cern has skyrocketed up the priority chart recently anyway. But Hex Mambo ban out the Ishtar, assuming they're going to pick Cern themselves and end up leaving the ROM back open for Netrioid after what was a dominant game number 1. Maybe even more surprising than that is that it is Chronos again, but not for Zyrhoes. That'll be for Snoopy out of the mid lane here in game 3. If you would have told me Chronos was 3 out of 3 games, I'm thinking it's Zyrhoes all 3 times.
Agreed.
Snoopy's going to dip his toes into the water here in the 3rd game.
I mean, the composition's still strong from the Solar Scarabs. Amaterasu should be able to hold her own in lane. We've seen what Netrioid can do on the ROM, so that should act as just leave them to their own devices and facilitate your Chronos in mid. But it's been a little while since we've seen Snoopy Chronos. I want to say like season 5, maybe? Was one of the last times we've seen him play this pick.
That didn't exist in esports back then.
Yeah,
that's
it's been a while. He's certainly capable of playing it. I trust Snoopy to be able to perform on it, but
all these jungle
in situations like this, I have to assume it's something they've practiced, because it is so seldom that a team will utilize one of their own picks essentially as just another ban on something especially as high execution as a Chronos without practicing it previously. So have to trust the Solar Scare has been able to play this pick and have been doing so in scrims very recently. But where does that leave Zyrhoes? Where does he go in this situation? Changa comes to mind as one of his favorite picks.
only because you're talking about Zyrhoes?
Only because it's Zyrhoes. But
anyone
I don't
else
hate
like,
it.
what?
I don't hate Changa here, and Changa has a sneaky good matchup into Chronos. Because of how Chronos' 3rd ability applies, needs to hit that slow immediately into the stun, could have immuned it instead. It's the Baba Yaga. Part of Zyrhoes' triad. It's Changa, Chronos, and Baba Yaga. Another pick that is pretty slow to start, will likely look at those stacking items early on, but has standard Mage Burst in the late game, pretty strong survivability against the dive of things like Amaterasu, Dazzling Offensive. Going to be pretty hard pressed to actually connect that stun. I'm excited for this one. A massive shift here in game 3.
You're going stacking, you'll get a little bit faster than what we saw in game 1 on the Chronos. I think Giannis is like an outside 4th. Would you call it a triad?
Yeah.
Of the 3 for Zyrhoes, I think Giannis is probably the next one in. I was wondering if we might get just a random Giannis pick for Zyrhoes, but no, it's the Baba Yaga who's seen a little bit of play, a little bit of presence in picks and bans this weekend. Heavy jungle emphasis in the final 4. All 4 bans towards the 2 junglers. I think maybe Wheelix and Naja, 2 good options. Hoping that Snoopy can have a safer laning phase, going to be important. There's still a lot of good value open, though, for Sanford Soccer here, Myth. Despite a Daji, a Wheelix, Naja, Hunbats, Thor ban phase, these junglers, this is where Sam's god diversity really gets tested.
Feel my
Fafnir, at least, for Hurriwind, and Serqet for Sanford Soccer.
Yeah, I thought, when I'm thinking of Sanford Soccer, the first 2 picks that had come to my mind,
Mercury.
I was thinking about Gilgamesh, I was thinking about Mercury. But instead, the Serqet as the direct matchup.
No, not in game 3. Not in game 3 against the Scarabs.
I mean, Opwash?
Opwash jungle?
No.
Anubis jungle?
No. No, none of that's happening.
There's a Mercury.
It's also his Loki, right? Johnny is
yeah.
really good on the Loki pick, and it's one that he has been apt to go towards pretty consistently as well. Maybe he's concerned about not having the burst potential to shut down this Chronos, wants to find that burst elsewhere. That's the Gotta burst right there. Habois locked in.
What a dynamic final couple of picks.
I've seen a new Habois build rolling through the ranked scene, like 3rd item Polynomicon. The strat is just blink 3, auto 1 ult, or just blink 3, auto ult. You've got really massive burst potential in situations like that. Serqet displacement, if you're timing Crushing Wave properly, you could drag the Serqet away with you if she decides to go for that ultimate as well. I don't hate it, but it is concerning for the mid 3v3 of Hex Mambo. One of the issues they had in game 1 was the inability to hang with that early pressure from the Solar Scarabs. Now what's the mid 3v3? It's a Baba Yaga, Habois, and a Ymir. Not exactly the most threatening thing for the first 15 or so minutes. Magical defense could be on the mind of either the jungler or the mid laner on the Solar Scarabs if they decide to itemize that way. Would really weaken some of those mid-team fights as well. I'm curious to see how this one pans out. I expect a much slower approach from Hex Mambo. You won't see Dzoni going in for blue buff invades at level 3 or looking for first bloods in Soul Lane like we had seen in the previous match. This is going to be a much more subdued style. Something they're used to from the regular phase, but maybe one that the Solar Scarabs can look to pressure early.
Could put a little bit of pressure on the mid lane here. We haven't seen much mid lane presence where Chronos has been in it. Serqet, though, stands out to me here, Myth. This was a support pick for a little while. It took over the jungle in past seasons and past phases. What are some of the benefits of the Serqet? What do you expect, Sam? Is this facilitation? Do you expect big burst damage? What's Sam's mindset here in Game 3?
Generally, Serqet, I would say, is a little bit more mid to late game slanted, especially around that ultimate and how her passive interacts with HP pools. But because of the direct matchup up against Hex Mambo and how slow their composition is, you can pilot this Serqet much earlier than standard. She's got some of the best jungle clear. She passed very well through the jungle. She's incredibly mobile, has some phenomenal dive targets on Hex Mambo as well. Will out-pressure the Habois pre-5. At level 5, there's some fight back with Crushing Wave, but until then, I expect Sam for Soccer to run it down.
The wait starting to build here. It's Game 3 between the Solar Scarabs and Hex Mambo. Let's find us a winner with J-Mac and Trelly.
We started our weekend with 2 SPL teams qualifying into the next round of play, and then 1 SCC. Will Hex Mambo be the second of those to join in with their SCC brethren of Eldritch Hounds in moving into the winner's bracket, or are we going to see the SPL team bring it back? It all comes down to game number 3. Between the Solar Scarabs and Hex Mambo. It's J-Mac, Trelly, and Doug. One final time in this set to see who's moving on to the winner's bracket and who will be facing elimination later on today. Remember, the loser of this has to come back and play in our 3rd set of the game against the Xibalba Storm to see which of those teams will be the first ones to go home.
This is an interesting one. I mean, the Solar Scarabs really wanted to make sure that Scary D took away this Amaterasu from Deathwalker, as well as getting Snoopy on the Chronos. Zyrhoes, I don't think minds too much. The Baba Yaga is still one of his favorite picks, but more interesting than that, Sam for Soccer and Dzoni, the Serqet versus Hebo matchup. When Serqet's ahead, I mean, it's free, right? There's nothing Hebo can do. She's going to immune your knockup with Deathbane and just consistently get your beads and force your ult out. When Serqet's behind, Dzoni does not care about Serqet. He's going to get close, knock up, ult, and just try and 100 to 0. So I think this is a battle of the junglers here. Will Sam for Soccer use that blink early, blink at level 2, try and find Dzoni, find a solo kill? That's kind of what you have to do because Hebo is a ticking time bomb. I mean, if he gets late game, he's just going to delete Snoopy before he can even rewind. He's going to do the same thing to Netrioid. You got to watch your positioning, but Dzoni does not have that damage yet, whereas Sam for Soccer, he gets that CC and that DPS pretty much out of the gate.
Game number 1, we had I believe it was 11-1 performance out of Netrioid on this same pick. We'll see if he can at least mirror that or try and hold up to that same moniker for game number 3. But I don't think it's going to be as free this time around as it may have felt in game number 1. Still, wave clear advantage should go to Solar Scarabs just by Hurriwind being on this Fafnir, boosting up that damage from Netrioid, but still do see pressure put on Echrome. A good root will lock Netrioid in place and keep him away from being able to poke Echrome, but Hurriwind has been relentless on these hammers to lock Echrome down.
Yeah, I can't believe we're getting to see the Netrioid Rama show once again as well. That is going to be very scary to deal with. I imagine Hex Mambo are prepared for it, though. It seems to be the call, just fight over and right. You know, give up left lane. Echrome will be fine. He'll get online eventually. Try and get Deathwalker head, look toward these blue buff invades, and maybe try and find some aggression onto Sam for Soccer. Could also be the call. I think that Hebo does not have a terrible early game, but it's the lack of CC and the fact that if you get locked down into some Chronos abilities, you're going to be in some trouble. So trying to stay away from Sam for Soccer does seem like a smart strategy to me.
Very aggressive walk up by Trixtank and dash from Echrome. Trying to put pressure on a Netrioid, maybe hoping that they could have forced the beads out, but all they've done was burn a couple of Sunder procs from Hurriwind. That'll be a cooldown for a little bit of time. The Soul Lane, I think you're right to highlight this, kind of where the action's been for Dzoni at the least, while Dual Lane has been going back and forth for both these squads. The Soul Lane has been in favor of Deathwalker. Back onto a pick that he played game number 1. It didn't go so well into the Bologna early on, but up against this Amaterasu, really feels like the Chulainn has a little bit more wiggle room to play with.
Yeah, certainly is the call. Deathwalker once again going for that Soul Eater. Again, if he's able to get a lead, makes sense, but He's worried about being tanky to these hard carries. Could be trouble. I suppose because Snoopy is on the Chronos, you're not going to have to worry about magical defense anytime soon. It's really just, you know, Sam for Soccer coming over for some ganks and Netrioid later on is the trouble. So at the moment, Deathwalker is just trying to get pressure, trying to bully out. Catches the dash there too. Scary D does not have beads, so it's going to take a lot of damage in the process. If Deathwalker ticked over to level 5, we'd be looking at solo territory. One more route will do it, but Scary D's dash should be on the way.
Oh, it's Sam jumping right in. That'll spare the life of Scary D, if not also for the fact that 5 did not get hit during that time. So Deathwalker puts some good pressure on the Amaterasu. And as for Scary D to go back to base, maybe a little earlier than he intended to, only able to pick up that tier 2 tower shield as opposed to picking up the full berserkers that we're more accustomed to. But level 5 for Sam, taunts Deathwalker back in, grabs him, and it's level 5 for Scary D instead. Deathwalker, who had great pressure to start the lane, is the first one to fall to the hands of the Solar Scarabs.
Yeah, just was not able to hit level 5. Sam for Soccer came over, showed his presence, and Deathwalker did not care. And also, showed himself on the totem. I mean, Sam for Soccer knew exactly where that Chulainn was. Once the teleport came back through, dazzling offensive, beautiful last breath as well. Just too much damage, and now Deathwalker is down just a little bit. Was able to finish Soul Eater though, that's pretty big. If he didn't have full Soul Eater there, would be in a terrible position in this lane, but was able to finish it, so teleport down. He's just gonna be stacking up for the time being, and not gonna lose his blue buff in the process. Sam for Soccer got the gank, but timed it so right before level 5 hit, was not able to invade that blue buff. So Deathwalker's not going to be hurting too much. That is just going to give a lead over to this Serqet. You know that Dzoni is a little bit flustered about that.
I'm curious as to how many stacking items we'll see out of Zyrhoes this game, because on a Chronos and on anything else, probably don't want to go more than one. But with Baba Yaga and her passive, imagine we'll see at least 2 of them. What 2 those may be is up for debate, whether it be Book of Thoth and a Warlocks, or Warlocks, Book of Thoth, and maybe a Charon's coin. Who knows? Could be seeing the triple stack there. So we'll be keeping an eye on Zyrhoes throughout this game, but also Sam, who's rotated over for Deathwalker once again. Deathwalker is in his transformed state, so he'll be a little bit tankier with that health shield, but Sam not going to make the commitment to stay over there. And with that one kill the Solar Scarabs got earlier on, with that kill for Sam, that's really about the only gold lead that we've seen so far out of the Scarabs. By getting the double Scorpion, that'll bump him up just a little bit more, but nothing significant just yet.
Yeah, not yet, and I think Dzoni is respectfully staying back. You know, he finished up that Book of Thoth, finally has some avenues to look for ganks, but you're not killing Scary D anytime soon unless he's sticking around way too long. And since Scary D got off to a great start with that gank from Sam, Deathwalker's really not able to poke out this Amaterasu too much. I'm thinking just probably get some ward vision and look towards killing these mages if possible. Snoopy is always a decent target, but you don't have Blink either. I mean, Dzoni can't close gap. It's very telegraphed if you're going to walk up, look for a water spout into a crushing wave, and that can usually be immune by the rewind. So I don't expect to see Dzoni really running it down until level 12. That Blink just opens up so many doors for a Hebo, especially at that point. You probably have either a Spear of Deso or a Soul Gem online. You have a lot of extra burst potential that this Hebo is going to need to get these kills later on.
So as we kind of look at Hex Mambo's squad, you know, well, maybe we let's pay attention to Snoopy in the mid lane a little bit. He's getting rotate on half HP. He's got the rewind though, so he'll get back to full and land just after the Ice Shard goes off. Now sets up for a gank to the right side. Dzoni in danger, has ultimate, but won't even need it because Scary D doesn't decide to focus on Dzoni, especially because there's 4 people rotating over. Sam could get caught out here, jumps over the wall. There was no option coverage there by Hex Mambo, so Sam will be able to make it out just fine.
That he is. Scary D does lose the ultimate though, and is looking a little worse for wear, but the blue buff invade will not come through. I'm surprised. Hex Mambo just wanted to get their own farm and not put any more pressure over towards the right side of the map. Snoopy rewinded though, as you said, very close to actually getting hit by that damage, and if so, maybe Zyrhoes wants to go into the home sweet home, but not going to be able to. Does not have enough damage to really chase that kill down, so he's going to be falling a bit further behind just by nature of Chronos' quick farm. But you've touched on it too. The passive from Baba Yaga should be just fine to get this Book of Thoth stacked up. Then you'd be able to do big damage, especially once you get that percentage pen.
Trixtank caught out. No ultimate, no immunity, and no life. Solar Scarabs get the second kill. Sam, though, eating a few shots from the Magic Bolts out of that home sweet home, but not quite enough damage yet from Zyrhoes to put a real threat onto Sam. He'll be able to jump back into the jungle, refarm up, and the Scarabs can bank on their second kill.
Yeah, getting Chronos an early kill as well is going to hurt, but now Scary D could be in some trouble. Timed it perfectly. Is that enough, though? I don't think the crushing wave into the one's enough. Water cannon, not enough. The auto, though, nope, not enough either.
Wow.
Scary D makes it out just by luck and regen at that point.
Yeah, one singular auto was all that was needed to find the kill there, but not going to find it this time around. So Scary D lives through. We'll be able to go back to base soon. He'll still regen quite a bit of his HP through that first ability to stay in lane just a little bit longer and keep the farm up. But where all the action's been happening in mid and right, the left side has been left alone entirely. We can see a little bit of a difference in the builds this time around. Echrome going in towards crit second item. Meanwhile, Netrioid once again going for that executioner early on.
That's going to help with boxing, of course, for Echrome. Netroid's going full shred, though. He wants that damage on the tanks. He knows that Deathwalker is going to be diving him consistently, and he wants to try and deal with it. And that was the smart call in game number 1. I see no reason why not to run it back. If Echrome can't pressure and find a way to force Netroid into boxing him, it won't become an issue. But Snoopy and Hurriwind on the rotation. Echrome and Trix know this. They're going to try and get out, but actually using the beads just to get some extra damage. That's going to be a good trade. Echrome and Trix can heal back up, but Netroid's beads are going to be down for quite some time.
That was an expensive trade out, and they don't even get the scepter off of it either. Echrome able to throw out the Bramble Blast and steal that one away at the last moment. So that's all good for Hex Mambo. Sure, Echrome uses his ultimate during that one, but if Force Beads, which is a much longer cooldown out of Netrioid, still gets the scepter after and actually forced almost an entire wave under tower up against Netrioid, so losing out a little bit of farm for the Hunter of the Scarabs. Red buff does go to Hex Mambo. Zyrhoes able to keep up with the farm of Snoopy, which is something that was in question as how this Baba Yaga will do in the early versus Chronos. Both very late game style of gods, but the Zyrhoes for sure able to get those extra stacks online. As you can see, he is now opting towards that Warlock staff for more defense, more HP, and just a lot of extra stacking.
Yep, just sitting back, waiting for these objectives. Probably the call. I think the Solar Scarabs are in a position to go for the pull, but they have to watch out. In a level or two, Dzoni will get access to Blink, and Blink Crushing Wave is going to outconfirm anything on the map. Scary D, though. Good job bullying. Will there be a chase down? No. Just trying to steal away some of the farm of this Hebo. I think Johnny's been able to pull ahead of Sam for soccer just by nature of stealing away camps and farming very quickly, where Sam's been focusing on fights. But now Pyromancer is being looked at. Zyrhoes knows this is happening, but doesn't have too much burst.
Johnny versus Scary D. Scary D is very low in mana. Zyrhoes beats away instantly to get away from Sam for soccer. A hammer missed by Hurriwind, but Deathwalker is still in the backline of this fight. Trixtank wants to find the kill onto Snoopy, who just used his beads to get away from Freeze. So that's one defensive cooldown now away from the mid lane of the Scarabs. And all that started off just from an attempted pull by Pyromancer. Has now cost the mid laner his beads and one of his biggest safety tools.
Yeah, it seems like Mambo are still getting aggressive despite being down a bit and getting the better end of some of these trades. XP-wise, though, still got to give Scarabs in favor. I mean, Scary D's about to get a second relic. Snoopy also able to get a second relic, whereas Zyrhoes and Deathwalker not quite level 11. Echrome does have that same lead, but Netroid's been playing smart and not even trying to box, staying pretty far back up against his tower whenever Echrome does try to force a fight or go for a nice Bramble Blast to force out of beads. But so far, it's just been pretty slow play, despite the early aggression that Sam for Soccer was able to find. Not too much trading, just Johnny walked up, went for a simple gank on a Scary D, didn't quite have the damage to finish it. And that's pretty much all Hex Mambo's been looking for, right? I've seen Trix walk up for some freezes, get some beads down. Doesn't have the blink, so can't close gap very quickly on this Ymir. It's pretty much, can you get a nice wall? If so, then yeah, you can pull beads. If not, you're probably not fighting. But Scary D once again goes for the pull, and once again goes for the stop.
Walker catches the dash from Scary D, but won't be too much follow-up there. Zyrhoes gonna throw some poke out. Wall and a freeze connects onto Snoopy. He's gonna have to use the rewind to get out of here, but he doesn't have the opportunity to do so. Zyrhoes puts him down, and now Hurriwind after the transformation, getting a lot of poke from the Solar Scarabs. He gets dropped by Deathwalker. Now it's the two-man in, but it's a double freeze by Trixtank. Snipes from Netrioid to try and turn this fight back through. Stun onto two by Scary D, but Johnny takes down Sam. Johnny goes down though. on the rotation from Netrioid, but he will fall right after to Deathwalker, who dives in the tower, and it's only Scary D left alive in a 4-for-1 trade for Hex Mambo.
Now Hex Mambo are going to win that fight handily and head for the Pyromancer. Great rotation in from Echrome. Netrioid was also firing away with those snipes, but wasn't able to make that same impact because the rest of his team was dead. Deathwalker's not even going to let Scary D get free farm in the meantime. That all starts from some great engage. Hurriwind is forced into the ultimate to try and help Snoopy, but once you jump on Fafnir in that dragon form, you don't have much else to try and survive. And Snoopy used the Aegis for the majority of the burst, but was not able to get that rewind off. That's the issue with Aegis on Chronos. You sort of lock yourself in place, and if you Aegis and then rewind, you're probably just going to die anyways. Was not able to get it off. Loses both relics in the process, but in this case, beads will be up in 5 seconds. Those were already down from earlier when Trix went in. But now the Fury could be the target. That Gold Fury looks a lot more appetizing for Hex Mambo now that they're able to grab their second relics, get a lot of ultimates and relics down from the Solar Scarabs, and have the gold lead in their favor for the first time.
And Zyrhoes on the spot with Yaga nearly stacked up for his Warlocks. Got the Book of Thoth finished up much earlier on, now opting towards looks to be a Soul Reaver in that third slot for the Baba. Level 14 for the mid laner, tied with his opposition. So Snoopy's farm from earlier on has been able to give him that extra safety net to keep him from falling too far behind after a 4-for-1 for Hex Mambo. That did trade the gold lead. What was about 1,000 up for the Scarabs, now 1,000 for Hex Mambo at the end of that. But a massive XP spike in favor of Hex Mambo this time around. Wall catches Snoopy, feeds quickly this time by the Chronos. Snoopy not gonna risk anything this time around.
Yeah, definitely a smart call, but now Dzoni has that blink. That's all it takes. If Snoopy doesn't have his reaction time down, it does not immediately rewind that knockup. I mean, Crushing Wave is going to absolutely delete this Chronos, but Netrioid is going to start up this Fury. Trix, the only one who can get here in time, and he can't even reach that gold here. This is free for the Scarabs.
Hurriwind transforms, gets the stun onto Trix, and a quick retreat from the Solar Scarabs. That will even out the game now. Back to dead even between these two teams in gold at the very least. Trix finds a double wall, double freeze, but not a whole lot of follow-up from the rest of the squad. Dzoni tries to loop in through the tower and gets a little bit of poke, but Tier 1 tower won't stand for much longer. The classic Gold Fury for Tier 1 trade for Hex Mambo, and now they're the ones who will back up.
Yeah, it looks like a possible chase down opportunity here for the Scarabs, but look at the relics and the itemization. I mean, it's clear what their plan is. Trixtank is in big trouble after that Sunder. He definitely will follow down, and that's what I'm talking about. That's the plan. You have your Frenzy from Scary D, and it looks like Deathwalker wants to fight this.
Double ult in the back line. Zyrhoes will go into the home sweet home. Netrioid's in danger. He has to dash away, but it's Zyrhoes in trouble now. Snipes 1, 2, needs the third one, but just a little short of it. The beats and H's burned by the mid laner, and Scary D dropped down by the Hobwa. Snoopy will rewind and gets just a little further down the lane and away from danger. A 1-for-1 trade, and this time the Bramble Blast off the mark by Echrome. Hurriwind will walk out. It's only Trix for Scary D.
Yeah, and that's going to be some good farm going the way of Hex Mambo once again, though. Still level 15 for Dzoni. Same for Soccer, can't hope to catch up at the moment. It's going to continue. Everyone else seems to be mirrored in XP, except for Deathwalker, who just climbed ahead 1 lead over Scary D. But that seems to be the target. I mean, we're seeing Hurriwind go into the ultimate, use that Sunder on a target, and just try and chain stun them, but also double Frenzy. Plenty of objective shred to be had here for the Solar Scarabs. Burst, once Snoopy gets online, will also be solid. Not going to be as much as a Crushing Wave, but still enough with a Poly Shot and a Time Rift to actually confirm one of these objectives. It's just, you got to have your vision up now. Hex Mambo cannot afford to let these Furies be done underneath their nose. The Fire Giant, the Pyromancer, all of those could be shredded in an instant with the Double Frenzy, the Amaterasu, and the Shogun's Fafnir. They've got plenty of time to just burn through those objectives.
Hex Mambo cannot be caught unaware of an objective, because as you highlight, Solar Scarabs, and just with Hurriwind alone, have the tools to allow his team to really be able to shred through there. Then you add, as you mentioned, Scary D, and then throw the actual damage in from Snoopy and Netrioid. It'll be 4 or 5 seconds on Gold Furies. Even Fire Giants might not stand for too long against the Solar Scarabs. Hex Mambo, though, still maintaining a small lead, even despite the team fight going for a 1-for-1 earlier on. But this is still a fairly slow-paced game. And Charlie, if we do end up pushing in to the later depths of this match, once you start hitting 30, 35 minutes, could be dangerous for either squad, but do you have maybe a favoritism of one comp coming towards late game over another?
I just think as long as Dzoni is positioning well and looking for Snoopy, you almost always have an opportunity to outplay that rewind with the crushing wave if you're able to get him low enough to where it doesn't matter. If he uses that rewind, he's still going to get deleted before it goes off. That could be trouble. However, knowing how Netrioid can play with this style of build already in game number 1, I don't think using your ultimate on Snoopy might be the problem. I think you need to use your ult on Netrioid. Someone is going to have to deal with this Rama. That's the reason Hex Mambo lost game number 1. They could not deal with the Rama. They didn't have enough for that dive. So if they are able to do that, and Netrioid doesn't have enough peel for himself, that could be late game going over to Mambo. But again, Netrioid positioned so well. He's got a good amount of peel with Scary D and Hurriwind on the dive. And he's the first one in towards this objective. No fear. Steps up, and the Pyromancer goes down for free to the Solar Scarabs.
Scarabs play to try and get back in. Let's grab some of this neutral farm. And Netrioid has just gone back to base, and the Solar Scarabs are backing away. Not sure if Fire Giant's the call for Hex Mambo, but they're going to start it up. Echrome is here, but maybe it's just to force out a fight. Trixtank stunned on the knock of the Fire Giant. The damage from Zyrhoes is just off the mark. Sam leaps over the wall and finds a taunt onto Deathwalker. Scary D eats a poke from Dzoni, but Scary D's ult is only going to find Trixtank. Gets the beads from him. Hurriwind transforms through, but right into the damage of Zero. Sam for Soccer not able to get that ult off during the fight. It's 2 ults for 2 during the trade.
Yeah, it's going to be a double down. Not too much use, though. Dzoni holds on to both relics and his ultimate. That was kind of the key I was looking for. Some great snipes from Netrioid, though, to say, hey, you want to go in, you're going to be less than half health. So I think Dzoni is definitely on his radar. Netrioid knows the one person that could delete him off the map is that Hebo, and he wants to keep tabs on him at all times. But you're right. I mean, the Fire Giant is still on the cards with Hurriwind available, the Shoguns, and Scary D pulling. Already, it's going to be starting to get burned.
Quarter HP, now down to half. Frenzy popped. Is this the commit for the fire or the fight? It's going to be a forced fight by Hex Mambo, but Dzoni doesn't get much value from his ultimate. Fire Giant is still leased. It has not been dropped yet. Trixtank will drop Sam, though, the first casualty of the team fight. But Deathwalker, Dzoni, both very low in the fight. They cannot stick around if Solar Scarabs decide to push back, but Deathwalker's got teleport. He's right back in the fight.
Yeah, it could be the call just to go in for more engage. Does not have the blink or the ultimate, but plenty of health bars now that teleport comes through. Netrioid still untouched, though. The beads are down, but full HP, dishing damage back in to Hex Mambo. They want to go for a pull here, but they have to wait just a little bit longer. They need some ultimates, they need some burst, and Zyrhoes almost has that ult back.
No ult for Dzoni. Fire Giant started by Echrome, dashing because they found Scary D. Caught in the wall, the knockup is good. Scary D able to get the ult just in time, but the damage from Echrome's will catch him out root onto Netrioid. Aegis will get him away from the war cry. Up in the sky to buy some time for himself, but can he find the snipes that he needs? Doesn't matter because Hurriwind is gone, Netrioid is gone. It's a double for Deathwalker, but Sam is back in to try and turn this one away. Dzoni goes down. But it's 2 versus 4 at the Fire Giant pit.
Yeah, but you lose some great burst damage there, and Sanford Soccer does have ultimate. He's trying to get in any way he can. Echrome doing plenty of damage, and here comes Snoopy as well. The Hex Mambo, they gotta try to zone this Chronos away.
Snoopy needs one good hit on the Fire Giant. He's trying to get that path in there. Can he sneak around and find it? He needs the shot over the wall. Sam goes into the pit, finds Echrome, but Echrome will take it around. Hex Mambo get the Fire Giant. Sam goes down. And Snoopy on the backside of the fight won't be able to get much for himself. It is fire on 4 for Hex Mambo.
I mean, Sanford Soccer was close, man. That's pretty much all he could do at that point. It was about as much damage as his build allows, and it was not enough to steal that one away. Snoopy also had a decent attempt. Going through the wall, not knowing when Hex Mambo are going to try and burst, is the best play you have. But now, up 10-5, 5K gold, and Hex Mambo have Fire Giant on 4. Oni Fury is still on the map as well. They are in a commanding position to try and fast track to level 20, upgrade some starter items, and really put a dent into the structures of the Solar Scarabs. I mean, 3 tier 2 towers available and still a tier 1 along with that Oni Fury. They have plenty of real estate on the map to try and get some extra gold in hand. Just got to watch yourself, though. Relics are not looking too good. Dzoni doesn't have beats for another 18 seconds, and also Echrome without beats for a minute. Make sure you're grouped up at the very least. Hex Mambo, don't want to step up too far without knowing where the Scarabs are.
Oni Fury will be started and secured by Hex Mambo. No chance of the Scarabs to get in and take this one away. And now our first significant lead of the game as far as gold is concerned for Hex Mambo. 5,712k XP. As nobody has hit level 20 on the side of the Scarabs yet. 3 for Hex Mambo have hit that mark. Snoopy and Scary will split push on the right side of the map, taking out tier 1 and likely tier 2 to follow, but they might want to go back because if there's a recognition from Mambo that there's a couple of players missing, they could walk right towards Phoenix. Scary D is going to go back. Tier 2 tower falls. Snoopy.
He's not going to stop.
Still not here yet. He's going to split push the Phoenix. This may not be a race they want to take. Deathwalker will go back and make sure to defend up against
teleport.
the Phoenix. He will just walk back instead. Polyshots are slamming. Snoopy gets this bird for free. Deathwalker maybe can try and punish this Chronos. That's a lot of damage that gets thrown his way. Deathwalker will de-transform right in time, gets the ultimate, and should be able to maybe solo out Snoopy, but doesn't have enough chase just yet. And all the while, Hex Mambo were not able to get Phoenix. They are able to take the mid tier 2, but Deathwalker should find that good. No, he was just off the mark, and the Salmon Leap's not there either. Snoopy is just buying time for Hex Mambo on the left side.
Yeah, but Deathwalker's not going to stop chasing him. All the while, this Phoenix is going to be going down with help from the Trebuchet. Dzoni, though, getting aggressed to by Sam, and here comes Scary D for the finish.
Scary D not going to get there, though. The damage from Echrome and Dzoni are enough to take him down. Snoopy finally able to go back to base because Deathwalker has teleported right back into the fight. Left side Phoenix gone, mid under fire. Hurriwind has jumped in, forced to transform. Can he even get out after landing? Yes, he will. A quick jump away, but mid-bird falls down to Hex Mambo.
And now it's time to retreat here. You get left and mid, but right side bird you lose because Snoopy was able to find that split push and hit level 20 while doing so. I'm really amazed that Deathwalker didn't just teleport in, but I guess he really wanted to defend with his body and then teleport in to help his team on the left side of the map. If he did, you're definitely keeping your Phoenix up, but also you can't join the squad and maybe get 2 birds in the process. So now Hex Mambo can just retreat and push up right lane. They really don't have to worry about those fire minions. The only reason that play from Snoopy matters is if they somehow group up and backdoor. Like if the Solar Scarabs just ward up and run in from the right side bird, that's the only reason that should be a big issue for the time being. But Fire Giant does run off in the next 15 seconds. And the Solar Scarabs could form a bit of a defense towards this next Fire Giant. It's just not going to be easy. They didn't get too much farm except for Snoopy during that engagement. Everyone else, their builds go relatively unchanged.
Hex Mambo now 9,000 gold up over the Solar Scarabs. 26 minutes into the game are in a good position to maybe knock the SPL once again down into the loser's bracket. Loser of this has to face off against the Shibalba Storm. Winner has got to play the Oni Warriors tomorrow. Will be the matchup for that one. Hex Mambo would much rather have an extra little cushion of safety of knowing that they can play a couple more sets where they don't have to fear elimination, whereas the loser will just be 1 set away from being knocked out of this tournament.
And that's going to be the call. Group up early, get the beads down from Trixtank. That could open up some doors for that Sunder, that Frenzy, to actually burn through this Frost Giant. Trixtank is tanky, but not tanky enough to survive the onslaught of the DPS from the Solar Scarabs when a Sunder is in play. Johnny's going to have to go back and defend those fire waves, but it looks like Snoopy is going to start split pushing the left side of the map. I think Deathwalker's keen to this. He's not just going to let this tower drop. He is not going to have to teleport in to save his Phoenix once again, but Fire Giant is the call. And there are 3 Scarabs here, whereas Sam for Soccer is going over to left. He's trying to help out Snoopy.
They will be able to get tier 2 on left and a push into the Phoenix, but is this going to be worth it by giving fire to all 5 of Hex Mambo yet again? Deathwalker's here, will jump in, gets taunted, immediately uses the ultimate, gets the beads from Snoopy this time. Stun is good. An ultimate this time from Sam, but it's a transform by Deathwalker. Will get the ult from Snoopy. That puts him right back at the Phoenix line. But just a little off the timing of the dash to put Snoopy in the Phoenix. 2 towers go down, but again, it's fire on 5.
Yeah, and now this is what I was talking about, though. Hex Mambo can just push up right lane now. That right side bird will spawn in, and that should be relatively dealt with. However, their left and middle Phoenix will spawn back in the process. Deathwalker does a good job of getting the ultimates out of Snoopy and Sam for Soccer, but it doesn't look like they're going to be fighting anytime soon, so Rewind should be back up in the meantime. And of course, Sanford Soccer has plenty of CDR as well with that Jotun's Wrath. And of course, the Mantle of Discord or Spirit Robe that he's building into as well. So plenty of time to try and form a bit of a defense here. And hitting level 20 is big. These are the kind of power spikes I've been looking for from the Solar Scarabs. They weren't able to find too much farm, but with Sanford Soccer going with Snoopy to split push this time, able to upgrade that starter item into whichever one he sees fit. But that right side tier 2 is still the target here for Hex Mambo. I imagine the call is still have Deathwalker blink in once that ultimate comes back up, and then look for some aggression. But look at this, Deathwalker was a little bit worried about that right side bird getting backdoored, so he actually sat next to the Phoenix and sort of pathed through the speed buff just to make sure that Snoopy wasn't there. A couple poly shots definitely would have been able to do it, so love that map sense from Deathwalker.
Now it'll be a group up of Hex Mambo to the right side. The last bird that is healthy at the very least. Stun and Asunder onto Trixtank. A dash in by Scary D, but he's gonna need some poke from Dzoni this time around. Zyrhoes will fall back to get a little bit of sustain from fire and from his cabin. That's giving him a couple of extra stacks to heal back up. Phoenix, still the question for the siege. Deathwalker finds through with the ult. The freeze doesn't connect. Trixtank will go down. No, he will not. Scary D doesn't commit to it. The snipes are going to have to be expended to find the kill. Netrioid gets it. And no one down yet for the Scarabs. No, Snoopy finds another fadeaway shot on the Deathwalker. Echrome low, will dash out. Hex Mambo fail on the siege, and the Scarabs are successful to defend one bird. But the fire minions push away the left side.
Yeah, fire minions get left. Unfortunate. I mean, Trix was almost able to live there, but Netrioid not missing those snipes, as well as Snoopy's full build, man. This Chronos has been split pushing and said, hey, I'm sorry that I'm not fighting with you guys, but eventually I'm going to get online. He's made it. Snoopy is online. That was some big damage coming from those time rifts and the Polynomicon shots. Enough to make sure the Solar Scarabs are in a good position here with 2 dead. And it looks like they're going to set up an ambush at red buff. Who's going to walk up? At least Zyrhoes, Dzoni, and Echrome are grouped as 3, but if they show up to that red buff and don't check their corners, that could be the end of the game.
Probably the only one who could survive a gank like that would be Zyrhoes, and that's only because he's
Here
got
it comes.
his relics. 4-man swing over. It's going to be 4 versus 3 in mid.
They're not looking. They're
Not sure they understand that they are there. I don't even know if the Solar Scarabs recognize just how few there are. Trix ain't going to walk through. Deathwalker far behind. They're going for this push.
Trix didn't even
They
see
want
them.
one. Echrome has now spotted out Sam and Hurry. Hurry jumps in, needs the stun, but a little too fast are Dzoni and Zyrhoes to get away.
Yeah, that's the issue about having no sort of blinks on the Solar Scarabs. They knew that gank was possible for so much time. They just couldn't actually close gap into getting the CC before the rest of the team could group up. But now Hex Mambo still in a great spot. They've got Fire Giant falling off in about 10 seconds. Their left side bird is still down, or I guess in this case, Hex Mambo had the left side bird down, and they're poised to take the enhanced Fire Giant that spawns in about a minute. I don't know who you're going to send to defend. Of course, it should be Scary D, but that teleport is not upgraded yet. So Scary D can't just join the fight easily. He can't just defend left and then show up to Fire Giant unannounced. So at the moment, it's going to be Snoopy. I don't really know if I like that so much. He's already full build. He doesn't need any more farm unless you're getting 3K pots. But it looks like he's the quickest and the safest to do it. And more specifically, if he gets ganked, Snoopy can fight back. Scary D is just going to run away at that point. So probably the smart call. Clear some waves quickly. Join back for EFG. Spawns in 25 seconds. And this is going to be another brawl for the objective.
Deathwalker still holding on to the left side of the map, recognizing that Snoopy was there. Not sure if you saw that Snoopy had backed, but now sees that an empty wave means no Snoopy. So Deathwalker can clear out that wave and maybe rejoin his team on the other side of the map. Or he could just stay here and wait for Snoopy to step forward to try and go for this bird, to maybe try and go for one of these towers that are still standing in mid, both Tier 1 and Tier 2. Fire Giant respawning here in just a moment. Hex Mambo have the position around it, but Solar Scarabs can go back for the fight. Freeze on a Hurriwind. Knockup is there, and Hurry's going to be forced to go back to base quickly. Wall blocks off his path. Hurriwind can't get out at all, and Snoopy only barely does so. The rewind just in time, but Snoopy back to full HP, and the fire started by Mambo.
Yeah, And this time, Dzoni does have Crushing Wave to try and confirm the enhanced Fire Giant, but Netrioid, Snoopy, and Scary D are stepping up. Sam for Soccer also trying to wrap around here, but Scary D's in trouble.
Knock up on a Snoopy. He doesn't have Rewind this time, but Echrome's ult is off the mark, but not Johnny's. His is pinpoint perfect. And Dzoni finds the double kill to start the fight out. Scary and Sam, the only two left alive.
They're going for the end.
Trixtank is going to zone them away. It'll be a back for Hex Mambo to try and defend.
Yeah, they don't care about that. They don't care about the enhanced Fire Giant. They want the end. Deathwalker is going to tank up this Phoenix, and Echrome doing plenty of damage as that left side bird does respawn back. It's just Scary D and Sam for Soccer, but both ultimates are available.
Right Phoenix down. Left Phoenix goes in just a moment. The Firemans will go through. Sam, Scary, and now Hurriwind on the respawn. Frenzy pop through. Can Hex Mambo do it? Can they send the Scarabs to losers once again? Echrome is gone. The Fire Giant, I'm sorry, the Titan is low. Dzoni stunned out. The damage isn't quite there. Hurriwind takes him out. That's a double kill for him. But Deathwalker and Zyrhoes do it just in time. A 2-1 win for Hex Mambo to send the Scarabs to the losers bracket.
Man, that one was close, but Zyrhoes going into home sweet home. Plenty of damage. Deathwalker, you could just tell he said business as usual, straightened up the tie, and is ready to walk out of there. And of course, the transformation from the Chulainn, just enough HP to continue tanking that one up and sending the Solar Scarabs down. That was a heck of a finish, though. I mean, beautiful ultimate from Dzoni. I was wondering when those crushing waves were going to come through, when they were going to start connecting and just deleting people, and we found it right there at the EFG.
Dzoni lands a big crucial ultimate, slams 2 with it. Snoopy unfortunately didn't have the rewind going into the last part of that fight, and just not quite enough defense out of Solar Scarabs to the Titan. It was close, though. Hurriwind comes back, finds that double, but Zyrhoes was still able to get some free cast damage out of that one and keep that game at least a little bit interesting. But it's Hex Mambo once again against the Solar Scarabs, able to find a win. Doesn't knock the Solar Scarabs out just yet. Doesn't qualify the Hex Mambo further, but makes it a little bit nicer for them. That's it for Chulainn on the cast. We'll throw it over to the desk to break it down.
Potentially knocks out the Solar Scarabs, though, later on today. We're going to now see 2 SPL teams against SEC squads in our final 2 best-of-3s of the day to avoid being knocked out of the SMITE World Championship contention. My goodness. It happens again. It's another win here, Mifflin, for Hex Mambo. And the storyline has been, it's a very different Solar Scarabs team from the last time it happened. It's an improved Solar Scarabs team from the last time it happened. Unfortunately, the Scarabs as a team, as an organization, fell back to some of their similar mistakes in the last time that the teams matched up. And Hex Mambo, the SEC team that we've talked about, can they beat the SPL again if they're able to get it done?
Man, an impressive performances top to bottom. You could really tell that Hex Mambo put the pressure on the Solar Scarabs. Decision-making started to wear a bit thin as the game went onward. Some of the drafts start to look a little bit iffier as well. That pressure certainly got to them. And Hex Mambo, they seem cool, calm, and collected the entire time, choosing their battles properly, playing the early game in Game 3 as well. I really loved the adaptation throughout the entire this set. Just felt like the entire time Mambo started playing faster, cleaner, faster, and eventually just completely overwhelmed their opposition, man. I mean, just phenomenal stuff.
Yeah.
I'd love to watch it all again.
I know. We're going to get we'll look back and we'll see some of the replays and really dive into it. But the high level is just so fun to talk about. You know, probably bad on my part. The caster mics may have actually picked it up, but when the camera post-game cuts to Deathwalker and he's just nodding up the tie.
Dude, so cold.
Losing my mind.
Absolutely raw,
Ice
dude.
cold. And in the Mifflin interview, what did he say?
It's for what I'm going to do to him. Can't broadcast it. We did, unfortunately. Oh, my
Some
God.
like mafia boss level stuff. Put out a hit on
yeah, he's a level
Solar Scarabs.
100 mafia boss, and he just owned like level 30 thugs.
Right, my goodness. And now, the implications from this, you know, there are 2 SEC teams now that are 1 best-of-5 away from going to the SMITE World Championship. Those games will get played later on this weekend. It happens again. Hex Mambo take down the Solar Scarabs, send them to the losers bracket. Who else but Deathwalker to stand by for the post-game interview?
Yeah, that's right. I've got Chulainn or Deathwalker from Hex Mambo standing by. Clean games out of you guys in games 2 and 3. Clean suit coming from you. And I got to address the elephant in the room. It's something that I kind of asked Trixtank earlier on. Didn't really get an answer out of him. What's the reason for the suit, man?
Well, at first, I mean, you know, I was kind of bought it because I think it's kind of fun, you know, in general. But then I saw that the players, the SEC players, weren't playing with their jerseys, you know. So like you're not obligated to actually show up with a jersey. You can pick whatever you want. Since I already brought a suit, I mean, it might as well, right? Like.
Might as well. Hey man, you look clean. You look clean in it. You guys look good. Tell me how it feels to get another win. I mean, this is a new Solar Scarabs team. Only a couple of players still, you know, kind of still there from the original squad that should be back at Summer Masters. How's it feel getting a win over kind of the new Scarabs team now?
It actually felt really good. I thought their dual lane played really well. Netrioid, I think, had like a really good set. On the other hand, Scary D, not so much. He kind of delivered what I expected in terms of gameplay. Jesus. Actually, I got nothing to say.
One more thing for you here. You're going to be going up against the Oni Warriors. That'll be your next matchup in the bracket. Tell me about the Confidence team now getting a win over another SPL squad. How do you feel kind of going into that next matchup?
I mean, we were very confident going into this one as well. And now we get to play against the Oni Warriors. I wanted to play against the Oni Warriors so bad. Even last time I just wanted to play them. I mean, you got Vote, you got Cubo Fred, Nika on the enemy team. That's all players I've never played against before. And that I think would be, well, before, like, I've never played against Vote, I guess.
Right.
And in the last 2 years, I haven't played them. So it's going to be, like, a very, very fun. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, should be a fun matchup with the Oni Warriors. Deathwalker, congrats on your win. I'll let you get back with the team to celebrate. We'll throw it back over the desk. Keep it going.
Chaos now sprinkled in to the brackets,
Did you hear what
both
he said,
Group
bro?
A and Group B.
You hear what he said about Scary D, bro?
Yeah.
That is crazy. This guy is ice cold.
But you know what? This is actually, I think, a bigger conversation that we've had throughout this weekend, where you've got these SPL teams who have all of the expectations behind them. You have SPL teams that are assumed to win these games. And then you've got teams like Hex Mambo, like the Eldritch Hounds, who are coming in and they're saying, of course I would love to win, but I've got nothing to lose. You know, I'm not expected to win. I have another job at home that I've got to go to.
I got a 9 to 5.
Right, and so they come in, of course you want to win, of course you want to go to Worlds, but there's so much weight behind it, and I think some of the freedom, the mental freedom, has helped now Hex Mambo after the Eldritch Hounds, and has stifled a couple of their SPL opponents. That's not to take away from the skill. You know, of course, Hex Mambo, a very talented team, as are the Eldritch Hounds. But the dynamic in these must-win games, Game 2 and Game 3 in this case, crazy to watch. And I think this Hex Mambo team, they're going to put up a fight against the Oni Warriors. And there's a chance, if they lose that one, they go up against the Solar Scarabs later on. We have not seen the last of Hex Mambo or the Solar Scarabs for the rest of this weekend.
No, I'm really excited for that rematch, right? Because now even Hex Mambo have got perfect knowledge going into the Solar Scarabs. That was something Trixtank had brought up a little bit earlier on during the pregame interview was, how do you prep for this team? We don't know what they play. They don't know what they play either. Now you know what they play and you know who they're playing through. If you could deal with Netrioid, you could deal with the Solar Scarabs.
I think Hex Mambo now know what the Scarabs play, and they don't care. This is kind of how
Why
it
would
feels
they?
right now. Because Game 1 was a dominant Netrioid performance.
It was all Netrioid
It was all
the way.
Netrioid. Game 2 felt heavily Johnny, but Echrome doing most of the damage in that game, but most of the kills for Johnny. And then Game 3, heavily Hex Mambo just in general as a team. Deathwalker has a miraculous set. Obviously some words
He
about
sold a
Scaredy.
Chronos twice.
Right, some words for
late game
for his
Chronos.
laning opponent. But later on in the game was crushing Snoopy. And so now, my goodness, Smith, the drama of our last two matches suddenly increases a little bit. And so this is our Group B bracket, where we will have an elimination match later on today. That'll be match 6. Our third and final set of the day will be Shabalba Storm, Solar Scarabs, another SCC versus SPL match. That one, elimination. Loser of our final match of the day goes home, out of contest for the SMITE World Championship, and the Solar Scarabs have to play in that one. So they're hanging out, regrouping, recuperating as a team, realizing they've got another best of 3 for their world lives just around the corner here later today. So this was a Group B match, Hex Mambo versus Solar Scarabs. Over in Group A is where we're going to jump next, where the weight is just the same as what we've got later on today. Highland Ravens versus Valhalla Valkyries, who lost yesterday against the Eldritch Hounds. And so our next matchup, that's the bottom center of your screen there, a best of 3, also an elimination match. So Mifflin, the wait now for these SPL teams in non-knockout matches against SEC teams was heavy enough. Now the Valks and the Scarabs playing very talented SEC opponents just to stay alive and keep their chances of going to Worlds alive.
And I can't imagine what's going through the Valkyries' mind as we
Especially
approach
after
this
the games
next
yesterday?
set. After the games yesterday, and not even just the set that they lost, but watching that Ravens versus Titans matchup. The Ravens were looking incredibly scary, man. The Valkyries were already looking a little bit shook after their loss. Now, got to be concerned about their mentals going into this next set.
And you consider the ending of that game too with the Titans and the Ravens, where Sino kind of sneaks past the ward,
Just narrow.
right as Kana teleports away. The thinnest of margins separate us from a Titans win in Game 2 and a Game 3 between those two teams. And now the Ravens play against the Valkyries. You don't want to go anywhere. We've got knockouts, SMITE World Championship knockout matches for our final two sets of the day, SPL versus SCC for both of them. Starting with Highland Ravens, Valhalla Valkyries coming up next.